Chapter 4085. In the blink of an eye, it engulfed the bodies of the heavenly fate sect disciples in front of them. After entering the confinement talisman array, it went straight for Mu Qingya, Mu Jingfeng, and Thorny Rose. At the critical moment, Mu Qingya climbed up the stairway to heaven with one hand. Her body was pulled along by the stairway to the extreme, and she dove into the clouds with a whoosh. At the same time, Thorny Rose and Mu Jingfeng also grabbed the stairway to heaven and escaped with Mu Qingya. However, they escaped quickly, and black fire chased after them very quickly. A spark burned up Mu Jingfeng's calf. Even though his figure disappeared into the clouds, everyone could still hear his miserable howl. Mo Lian slightly clenched her fists, and a faint trace of anger flashed through her eyes. She raised her hand, but Arbor raised his hand and pulled it down. "Forget it. Don't chase." The little girl sighed. The God-tier talisman can send people into the air. They can be sent 2,000 kilometers away at a time. This is another rare purple talisman. I'm afraid it's more than 2,000 kilometers. Crown Princess, let's just forget about it, Aoyi said with a frown. Of course I can't just let it go like this. As Xiao Mu spoke, a cold glint flitted across her eyes. He turned to Prince Mo and said, "Prepare the troops. We'll wipe out the nearest nest in one fell swoop." The magical thing about the Stairway to Heaven talisman was that she could set a fixed location to return to. Arbor knew very well that the location Mu Qingya set must be the safest place she thought it would be. Without needing Arbor to say anything else, Prince Mo nodded in understanding. He turned back and whispered a few words to Aoyi before letting him lead the troops away in a hurry. Mu Jingfeng rolled down from the Stairway to Heaven talisman. He kept patting his left leg with his hand as he wailed in pain. Thorny Rose coldly glanced at him. She stepped forward and kicked him, exasperated at his failure to live up to her expectations. "You piece of trash. You just stood up for a moment, and now you're kneeling again. You're simply wasting my improved medicine. Deputy Hall Master, Deputy Hall Master. Give me another bottle of medicinal liquid, Vice Hall Master." Right now, Mu Jingfeng only felt a scorching pain in his calf that spread to his heart. He was in so much pain that he couldn't help but hug his knees. He rolled back and forth on the ground until he reached Thorny Rose. Scram! Thorny Rose kicked her aside and turned to look at Mu Qingya, who was tugging at her clothes. The three of them were standing in front of a dilapidated temple on a hillside in the suburbs. Many disciples of the Heavenly Fate sect had already rushed out from under the ruined temple. When he saw Thorny Rose, he cupped his hands and bowed, "Vice Hall Master." They didn't seem to know Mu Qingya, the Hall Master of the Soaring Heavens Hall. Their eyes were filled with vigilance and curiosity as they sized up the woman who was flinging her outer robe. "Hall Master Mu, what are you doing?" Thorny Rose speechlessly looked at Mu Qingya. In her heart, she actually looked down on this Hall Master who had no cultivation at all. But at least on the surface, he could not show the slightest bit of disdain. After all, this was someone who could casually take out a divine rank jade talisman. There was no need to doubt her identity. Mu Qingya turned around and pounced at Thorny Rose. She reached out to tear off her outer robe. Although her expression was calm, her tone was slightly hurried. "Take off your outer robe." And his. "Take it all off. Everyone, prepare to evacuate this stronghold. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and do it." Chapter 4086. When Mu Qingya flung off her outer garment, an inconspicuous little black butterfly emerged from Mu Jingfeng's hair and flew up with a flap of its wings. Thorny Rose's outer garment was hooked to the long skirt inside. If it was torn apart, she would be stripped naked. What would become of her, the great Deputy Hall Master, in broad daylight? Thus, she tried her best to stop Mu Qingya, but her expression instantly turned ugly. "Hall Master Mu, can you tell this subordinate why this is?" "There's no time to explain. Hurry and take off your clothes and see if there's anything dirty on them. Also, hurry and prepare to evacuate this place. Everyone must evacuate. Take all the test subjects with you. You only have half an hour to prepare. You must be quick, quick." A dark and slender figure abruptly appeared beside Mu Qingya. Seeing her slightly flustered appearance, he couldn't help but frown. "Or you?" Mu Qingya untied a jade pendant from her waist and smashed it to the ground, revealing a silver token inside. She handed it to the demon-masked hall master and said in a deep voice, "You're the person in charge of this stronghold, the Burrowing Hall's hall master Gong, right?" "I'm the Soaring Heavens Hall's hall master, Mu Qingya." 15 minutes later. The demon-masked hall master stared coldly at the flashing flames on the hillside in the distance and didn't speak for a long time. Thorny Rose clutched the coarse clothes she had just changed into, and her face was filled with alarm. "What's going on, Hall Master Mu? How did the Crown Prince's people get here so quickly?" Mu Qingya took a deep breath and turned around to whisper, "Let's go. Abandoning this stronghold is our best choice right now." The demon-masked hall master coldly turned to look at Mu Qingya. "You'll explain this to Master and receive your punishment." "I will." Mu Qingya nodded faintly with a nonchalant look on her face. The demon-masked hall master sized her up and sked lightly before shaking his head. "I didn't know that the Soaring Heavens Hall's hall master, who has always been elusive, was actually the mistress of the Talisman patrician family. Hall master, you've really hidden yourself well all these years." Mu Qingya's lips curled into a mocking smile. "So what if you hide it well? You'll still be seen through in the end. Hall masters, are we going to retreat just like that?" Thorny couldn't help but ask. 15 minutes was not enough time for them to prepare much. They only sent out some important information and test subjects. The rest of the things could only be set on fire. There were still quite a few Heavenly Fate brothers left in the ruined temple to delay the other party. They really did not expect that the little crown princess and her men would arrive so quickly. It was almost as if they had just set the fire in front of them, and the other party had already caught up. They're trying to put out the fire, so the documents haven't been completely burned yet. If they see them, will they? Mu Qingya said coldly, "There's nothing important that can be left there for them to see. The Crown Prince and the Crown Princess are both smart people. They should know this. Let's go." Mu Qingya turned around and said. The group of people entered the transportation array and disappeared in a few minutes. Arbor looked at the ruined temple that was crackling with flames. He looked at the dilapidated walls and fences before looking into the distance with his deep black eyes. He passed through the numerous trees and quietly landed on a spot. "Soaring Heavens Hall Master, we have plenty of time in the future." Chapter 4087. Inside the Mu residence's main hall, a chaotic clamor could be heard. Prince Mo and the little crown princess sat side by side at the head of the hall, expressionlessly looking at the people who were forced to kneel in front of them. Their gazes swept past Mu Jingxing, Qiushi, Mu Erkshu, and Mu Ruian. Crown Princess, it was him. It was Second Master who let them in through the front door. We saw it with our own eyes. There's not a word of falsehood. Old Master Mu coldly looked at the second branch's group and couldn't help but angrily shout, "Jing Xing! You actually did such a thing?" "Father!" Qiushi hurriedly knelt and cried out for being wronged. "Father, how can you believe that our second branch betrayed the Mu family just based on a few juniors from the side branches adding fuel to the fire? No need to quibble anymore. Ever since you were attacked by the harpies last time, Father sent people to keep an eye on you. No wonder the incident last time was so strange. That night when your second branch was on duty, the harpies entered the Mu residence as if they were entering a deserted place," Mu Jingyuan coldly said. "Third brother, what do you mean by that?" Mu Jingxing was furious. Mu Jingyuan didn't waste time with them and directly threw 2 jade talismans in front of them. "Take a look. Don't say that a few juniors wronged you." Mu Jingxing's body trembled slightly, and he looked at the jade talismans on the ground with some horror in his eyes. "You should have seen the image jade talisman made by Jojo on the day of concubine Shi's death, right? Second uncle, what else do you have to say?" Mu Xingchen sat in the seat below Mu Jingyuan and stared coldly at Mu Jingxing's family. "Wronged, this is wronged." Mu Jingxing angrily said, "This is simply framing us." "Framing us?" Mu Xingchen sneered. He raised his hand and sucked the image talisman into his hand. A trace of divine power entered it and opened the jade talisman's image. It clearly recorded how Mu Jingxing and Mu Erkshu sneaked to the Mu residence's mountain gate, put away the talisman array at the gate, and opened the gate to welcome Mu Jingfeng's group. Second uncle, you still want to continue quibbling? Just as third uncle said. Ever since the incident with the harpies, we have been keeping an eye on your second branch. Now that we have witnesses and material evidence, I really don't understand where you get the face to continue to complain in front of us and even try to absolve yourself of the crime. Mu Jingxing looked at Mu Xingxin's cold expression and his body involuntarily trembled. He suddenly shouted, "Can you blame me for this? Are you going to blame me for everything? You forced me to do this, you forced me to do this." Mu Jingxing yelled angrily. His hands couldn't help but point at the sky and draw a picture, his face frosty. "I've worked hard for this family for so many years. Can't you see how much I've sacrificed? Mu Jingfeng has fallen from power, yet you guys aren't giving me the position of the family head. Instead, we have to support this silly girl on stage. On what basis? Heh. Do you really think that all my years of hard work will go down the drain just because of an order from my ancestor? All of you. You guys are delusional. I think you've gone mad." Elder Dao couldn't help but shout angrily. "This is the reason why you betrayed the entire family?" First Elder shook his head with a look of disagreement. "When did I betray the family? If it wasn't for the family letting me down first, why would I go to this extent?" Chapter 4088. Do you think I wanted to do this? I was forced to do this. You forced me. Mu Jingxing shouted angrily. Old master. Old master." Madame Chio's face turned pale. She wanted to go up and stop him, but he flung her away forcefully. Madame Chio fell to the ground and let out a small cry of surprise. "Mother!" Mu Ruian was truly scared out of her wits. She was the one who was completely kept in the dark. She had no idea that her father and second brother would do such a thing. Most importantly, it was bad enough that you secretly betrayed the family, but now, you were caught in the act. Wasn't this implicating her for no reason? This seventh Miss Mu was so frightened that she trembled all over. She hurriedly crawled to old Master Mu and cried pitifully, "Grandpa, Grandpa, this has nothing to do with me. I didn't know. I didn't know that father and brother would do such a thing." Great. Old Master Mu had yet to punish them, and the Mu family's second branch was already having an internal conflict. Mu Erkshu's expression was very calm. He kowtowed before Old Master Mu and said, "Old Master, please allow me to report." "You want to quibble with your father, too?" Mu Erkshu calmly shook his head. "Not at all. However, I have my own reasons for doing so." "Your reason is to cause the destruction of our entire Mu family." Mu Jingyang, who was at the side, flew into a rage and raised his leg to kick Mu Erkshu. Mu Jingxiao hurriedly stopped him. "Old Five, don't be rash. Let's hear what else he has to say. As a son, I couldn't stop my father. It's my fault. It's my fault, but as a disciple of the Mu family, I know my bottom line." As Mu Erkshu spoke, he took out a brocade box from his inner world and presented it with both hands. "Grandpa, grandson is willing to help father to get close to the person blessed by the heavens because of this. Be careful." Mu Jingzhuang pushed his fourth son, Mu Jingxiao, and the rest back defensively. He pointed at him and said angrily, "What kind of harmful thing is in your box?" "Fifth uncle, you'll know once you open it." Mu Erkshu lowered his eyebrows. However, before Mu Jingzhao and the rest could do anything, the brocade box in Mu Erkshu's hand suddenly flew out and landed in the little crown princess's hand. "Crown princess." Xiao Ye's heart skipped a beat as he quickly raised his hand to stop her. The little crown princess raised her hand to stop him. Her expression was calm as she said, "They're just some interesting little fellows. They can't hurt me at all." Then he raised his hand and opened the brocade box. Everyone only heard a buzzing sound as hundreds of pale things flew out, giving everyone a fright. However, they quickly calmed down again. This was because these little things that flew out were all controlled by the young crown prince consort within a transparent, round, watercolored boundary. No matter how they thrashed about inside, they still couldn't escape from that defensive boundary. What a powerful water spirit defensive barrier. Everyone sighed with emotion. From the Mu family's point of view, they always felt that this was the little crown princess's limit, but it wasn't the case every time. The little crown princess would surprise them from time to time, making them inexplicably feel that this crown princess's potential was endless. What the hell is this? Mu Jingzhao's expression changed. Chapter 4089. They're a batch of skeletal flying beasts bred by the All-Seers people using improved medicine. Looking at the original form of these little fellows, they should be flying beasts like hummingbirds. At this moment, their skin and flesh had long withered, leaving only a handful of pale bones. Grandfather, as you can see now, I contacted the All-Seers people to gather more information for everyone. Mu Urkshu took a deep breath and kowtowed heavily to the ground. I only approached you for the sake of my family. Don't make irresponsible remarks, Arbor coldly interrupted him. A faint cold light flashed through Mu Urkshu's lowered eyes. You originally wanted to release these little fellows and cause chaos by surprise, then take the opportunity to escape. Why do you say that, Crown Princess? No matter how glib your tongue is, you can't wash away the crime of following Mu Jingxing and destroying the Mu family's talisman array. You and Mu Jingxing went to the Mu family's mountain gate together to welcome the group of All-Seers disciples that Mu Jingfeng brought. You killed your way into the Mu family and killed many clan members. This is definitely the truth, right? Bastard! Mu Jingzhuang pointed at Mu Urkshu and shouted angrily, Father, elders, the second branch definitely can't be allowed to stay. Mu Tsang sighed faintly and looked at Mu Jingxing and the others. He shook his head and said, Then, remove the second branch's name from the Mu family's genealogy and banish them from the capital. Father. Mu Jingzhuang called out in dissatisfaction, as if silently blaming his father for not dealing with matters with enough severity. Such a great crime of betraying the clan, yet he only raised it up high and let it go lightly. This punishment was too light. But how could he understand Mu Tsang's heart as a father? Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs, let alone personally giving the order to kill the second branch's entire family. Mu Tsang knew that he could not do it. Since the second branch had disloyal intentions towards the Mu family, they could no longer stay in the family and were banished far away. In the future, whether their family was rich or poor, it had nothing to do with the family. No, grandfather, you can't chase me out of the family. Mu Ro-yi cried out with a frightened expression. Grandfather, I'm your biological granddaughter, grandfather. Mu Tsang waved his hand and had several disciples of the Mu family drag the entire second branch out. Mu Ro-yi wanted to scream again, but an impatient Mu clan disciple found a rag and stuffed it into her mouth. As Mu Jingxing was taken out, he shouted angrily, I refuse to accept this. I won't accept it no matter what. Old Patriarch. First Elder frowned and couldn't help but say, Will the people of the Mu family's second branch cause any more trouble? After all, from the looks of it, this family was not going to let the matter rest. Mu Tsang shook his head in disappointment and exhaustion. Send someone to keep an eye on them. Tell them to pack up and leave the city. With that, he turned to look at the Crown Prince and Arbor with an apologetic expression. Your Highness, I've made a fool of myself. Prince Mo shook his head and didn't say anything. Arbor glanced at the group of skeletal hummingbirds that were trapped in his water spirit barrier and couldn't get out no matter how hard they tried. After some thought, he first threw them into a purple storage talisman. She could take these little things out to study when she had the time. She could see that a black crystal the size of a grain of rice was suspended in each of these little fellows' half-fist-sized skull. Chapter 4090. If she could peel off these black crystals and study them carefully. She didn't know if she could find a way to crack them. However, she had a lot of things to do now, so she'd have to wait until she had the time to study them. This thing couldn't be rushed. After Arbor finished thinking, he raised his head and looked in the direction of Mu Tsang and the others. He stood up and said, Take care of the rest, we'll return to the palace first. Then he took out a box and threw it to Old Man Mu. There are a few sets of defense array glyphs inside. See if you can set them up around the house. Mu Tsang's expression was a bit excited. He took the box and nodded, then stood up. Jojo. Crown Princess, please wait. First Elder also hurriedly stood up and presented a token with the Mu family emblem with both hands. This is the family emblem. In fact, it should have been given to you when you came out of Chaoyang Pavilion. You're the chosen patriarch of Chaoyang Pavilion. If it was in the past, perhaps some clansmen would be dissatisfied. However, from now on, I believe that no one will raise any doubts. Arbor frowned slightly. The three elders cupped their hands and said in unison, "Crown Princess, please don't refuse. Crown Princess, please don't refuse." Arbor nodded and raised his hand to take the token from First Elder. He said faintly, "Since you want me to be the patriarch, then from this moment on, you have to listen to me in everything, including the daily training of the clan's disciples and so on." The three elders nodded in unison. "We'll listen to the patriarch's instructions." Then, the patriarch's succession ceremony, Arbor shook his head. "Unusual times, let's keep everything simple. Gather all the disciples here." The Mu family had gone through 2 great battles and lost more than half of its disciples. Now, the entire family, from the Elder Council to the clan's ordinary disciples, added up to less than 1,000 people. However, after the 2 great battles, the ordinary disciples' temperament had improved a lot. This was actually a good thing. Many cancer-like existences in the family had been purged. After removing the dregs, what was left should be the essence. Even so, Xiao Mu still looked down on these people from the Mu clan. After all, compared to the phoenixes, the Mu family's combat prowess was incomparable. A quarter of an hour later, many of the Mu family's disciples were neatly dressed and gathered in front of the hall. A group of disciples lined up in a square formation and stood under the broad steps, looking up at the people standing in front of the hall. The little crown princess stood at the front of the crowd expressionlessly, staring at them with a sharp gaze. "Greetings, patriarch." The 3 elders of the Mu clan cupped their hands together. Following that, the disciples at the bottom of the stairs took a step forward in unison, kneeled on one knee, and cupped their hands in salute. "Greetings, patriarch." "Greetings, patriarch." The voices of the crowd of disciples were loud and clear, like the waves of the sea spreading outwards, shaking the mountain forest and slowly rippling in the air. In the darkness before dawn, that voice rose and fell for a long time. Everyone's heart was surging with emotions. "Today, Tian Yun killed my people and trampled on my land. In the future, he would make him pay with his blood. He would pay 100 times the price." As soon as the little crown princess finished speaking, the disciples immediately raised their arms and shouted loudly, "Blood for blood! Blood for blood!" Mu Tsang stroked his beard and nodded comfortingly. Chapter 4091. Open the city gates. His Highness Prince Qin has returned to the capital. Open the city gates. Following waves of excited shouts, the city guards busied themselves. As the winch moved, 2 rows of soldiers worked together to push open the heavy city gates made of huge rocks from the inside out. Duan Yu was dressed in pitch-black military armor, and his long hair was tied into a ponytail that hung down to his waist. With a whip in hand, he strode forward on his horse. After so many days of marching, his originally porcelain-white skin now revealed a healthy wheat color. Looking at the cheering commoners on both sides of the street, a faint trace of astonishment flitted through the man's inky eyes. In his opinion, Mo Lien dispatched 1 million soldiers to station in Fengyang City to lend him a hand. Naturally, it was impossible for them to attack. However, the entire Tsang province's imperial court was unaware, and neither were the commoners. Thus, in their opinion, His Highness Prince Qin, who could persuade the Divine Prefecture army to withdraw and return home without suffering any losses in Tsang province, was simply a godlike existence. Right at this moment, Wu Yong led a group of people out of the city to welcome them. When they met, he immediately dismounted with a wide smile and went forward to greet them. This old official greets His Highness Prince Qin. "Prime Minister Wu, no need to be so courteous." Duan Yu nodded slightly. Wu Yong couldn't help but step forward in joy. The tall and slender young man beside him also stepped forward to greet him. "Greetings, His Highness Prince Qin." Duan Yu swept him a nonchalant glance. Wu Yong turned to glare at that young man and waved his hand, indicating for him to retreat. He then said to Duan Yu with a smile, "Your Highness, His Majesty sent this old official to welcome you. Let's return to the palace now. His Majesty has been waiting for your Highness since early this morning, so he must be anxious now." Duan Yu nodded slightly. "There was a small situation on the way, so we were delayed. Thankfully, your Highness returned safely. This is our entire Tsong province's blessing." Wu Yong chuckled as he mounted his horse and led the group to retreat slightly, calling for Duan Yu to go first. After the caravan advanced, the commoners on both sides of the street cheered thunderously for His Highness Prince Chen's name. Their high spirits and enthusiasm made Duan Yu feel a bit strange. If they knew the truth, Duan Yu furrowed his brows and remained silent. Behind the crowd, a blue and white palanquin had been waiting for a long time. At this moment, a soft voice sounded from the palanquin. "Xiao Ju, help me out. Let's walk forward. Miss, it's too crowded here. Be careful." The maidservant disapprovingly helped her miss out of the sedan. He reached out and grabbed her arm. "Miss, it's so messy here. It's not appropriate to squeeze through. Then help me stand there." This woman was about 20 years old. She had a slender figure and fair skin. She was obviously a young lady from a large aristocratic family. "Miss, you haven't fully recovered from your injuries, so you shouldn't come up and down again." Although the maidservant called Xiao Ju was grumbling, her footsteps moved as she supported her young miss and walked towards the stairs behind her. Now that Qi Liren was standing at a higher height, she could clearly see the man in the middle of the crowd, who was slowly riding his horse along the wide street. "It's really him, Xiao Ju, it's really him." "Yes." Xiao Ju nodded and said, "That day, when Miss finished her consultation with Divine Physician Gao and returned to the city, she encountered His Highness Prince Chen. I heard that His Highness left the city in a hurry that day because of his mother." Chapter 4092. His mother. Qi Liren turned her head slightly to glance at the maidservant. What happened to his mother? His Highness's mother, noble consort Duan, passed away some time ago. The maidservant lamented. His Highness stayed on Lonely Mountain for a whole month to keep vigil over his mother's coffin. Every commoner in the capital knows about this. Everyone praises His Highness the Fourth Prince for his filial piety and intelligence, far surpassing all the princes in the court. Qi Liren pursed her lips into a smile and nodded, a faint luster flowing in her eyes. "Let's go back and discuss this with family head." The young maidservant was taken aback. Discuss what? Although she didn't understand her miss's meaning, she didn't say anything and helped her miss down the steps, returning to the sedan chair. "Miss, your injuries are quite serious. Divine Physician Gao's meaning is that if there's nothing else, Miss should recuperate more at home." "Got it." Qi Liren's hand moved, but before spiritual energy could form, she felt a stifling pain in her chest. She could only give up and sigh, "My injuries have damaged my lungs and meridians. I reckon I won't be able to fully recover without a year or so." "Don't worry, Mississippi. With Divine Physician Gao's diagnosis and treatment, you will slowly recover." The young maidservant flattered, "You are our clan's most talented miss. You were injured because of the clan's affairs this time, so family head will definitely distribute the best pills to you." As the maidservant spoke, she helped her miss into the sedan chair. Qi Liren was being carried forward. Involuntarily, she twisted her two slender fingers and lifted the curtain of the sedan chair to look over. However, she only saw that graceful and handsome figure walking far away, leaving only a bit of the setting sun's afterglow following him. Qi Liren smiled knowingly and pursed her lips before lowering the sedan chair curtain. "Marrying should be marrying an exceptionally good man." "Your Highness, what is this?" The young man following beside left Prime Minister Wu Yong impudently stepped forward on his horse and pointed at a bulging bundle tied to the saddle. Prime Minister Wu irritably glared at that young man. "Unruly, withdraw." The young man pursed his lips and took advantage of the situation to retreat a few steps behind Wu Yong. "A gift for second imperial brother," Duan Yu replied nonchalantly. "For the second prince?" The young man blinked and asked curiously, "Can this subordinate take a look?" "Shut up." Wu Yong's expression changed. He turned his head and glared at the young man. With a spurious smile, Duan Yu tossed that bulging bundle to the young man. The young man immediately beamed with joy. Before Prime Minister Wu could reprimand him, he immediately opened the bundle. From within, a bloody head was revealed. He was so scared that he rolled off the horse and vomited. With Miss Wu's gall, it's best that you don't casually open other people's gift packages. Duan Yu coolly tossed down this sentence before galloping forward on his horse. Prime Minister Wu couldn't help but smile bitterly. He turned around and glared at his daughter who had vomited so much that her face had turned pale. He shook his head and said, "I told you not to follow, but you insisted on following. Look, you've made His Highness unhappy." Wu Rome vomited for a while before wiping her face with her sleeve. She angrily tied up the bundle again and mounted her horse. "Your Highness!" Wu Rome chased after him. "I'm not a coward." Duan Yu turned a deaf ear to her cries. He had already entered Songzhou's imperial city and entered the palace to meet the emperor. Chapter 4093. That night, the announcement to crown the fourth prince as the crown prince came. The ceremony would be held in the Taizong Temple in Mount Taiyuan 3 days later. The entire Songzhou was in an uproar. There was almost no opposition in the imperial court. After all, the fourth prince had just solved such a big problem in the divine land. Everyone had seen his ability to remain calm. Second prince, second prince. A guard trembled as he ran in with a bundle in his hands. He knelt on the ground and said, "Second prince, His Highness the fourth prince, oh no, His Highness the crown prince sent someone to deliver a gift." The second prince and the third prince were sitting there discussing something. They really didn't expect that the announcement to crown the crown prince would come so quickly. It simply caught them off guard. They thought that even if Rongli was deposed, the matter of selecting the next crown prince would have to go through a series of discussions and debates in the imperial court. Who would have thought that it would be so fast that it almost shocked them? When the two of them received the news, they went to the imperial court at night to see His Majesty. However, they were blocked outside. The steward eunuch seemed to mean that His Majesty's health was getting worse and he needed more rest. Then why did he send the edict overnight? The second prince walked up and down in the hall. At this time, when he saw the guard come forward, he couldn't help but shout, "What gift?" His face was very ugly. He didn't expect that after suppressing the Empress and Rong Li's family, this matter was still not over. After suppressing Rong Li, Duan Xiaoxi took advantage of it. Now that he thought about it, it was really abominable. This fourth prince was even more abominable than Rong Li's family. Wasn't this just watching from the sidelines, watching them fight each other, and then reaping the benefits from the fisherman's quarrel? The guard unwrapped the bag with trembling hands. The second prince took a look and his face became more and more ugly. A head rolled out of the bag. Of course, he could not recognize this person. This was the leader of the assassination team he sent. He originally planned to let them kill Duan Xiaoxi on his way back, but now it seemed that this assassination was a complete failure. The hundreds of assassins he sent were all killed by the fourth prince. The third prince took a deep breath. His expression suddenly changed as he asked, "Second imperial brother, who is this person?" Fourth prince is actually so arrogant, directly sending a head to second brother? The third prince shouted angrily, "Second brother, we must not let this matter rest." At this moment, the second prince's mind was in a mess. Hearing this, he couldn't help but glare at him in annoyance. "How am I not done with him? Second brother, as long as we can afford the price, are we afraid that we won't be able to find someone?" The third prince took out a spirit coin card from his pocket and pushed it in front of the second prince. He furrowed his brows and said angrily, "Let's go to Jiawei City's black market and issue a mission. In for a penny, in for a pound. Give this guy." The third prince made a throat-slitting gesture. The second prince's eyes lit up slightly. He raised his hand and patted the third prince's shoulder. "Third brother, if I can ascend the throne, I will definitely not forget your kindness." Of course, of course." The third prince chuckled and said, "Second brother, you know me. I'm really devoted to Big Brother." The second prince's eyes flashed, and he nodded with a smile. Then he turned around and scolded the guard, "What are you still standing there for? Throw this thing out. The fourth prince thought that by sending a head over he could make him afraid. How ridiculous! Chapter 4094. That guard trembled and was just about to tie up the package with the human head again. Suddenly, a buzzing sound was heard, and several mosquitoes flew out of the skull. As soon as the mosquitoes touched his hands, they immediately ignited into a raging fire. He was in so much pain that he threw the package to the ground and screamed as he retreated. These fiery, evil, poisonous mosquitoes were really very powerful. In just a few minutes, they had burned the person to a crisp, leaving only a pile of bones that fell to the ground with a thud. This unforeseen event scared the second prince and the third prince so much that they started to tremble all over. The two of them shouted in unison, "Protect the emperor! Protect the emperor!" Many guards in the courtyard rushed in and surrounded the two princes. They waved the swords in their hands in a disorderly manner to cut down the mosquitoes in the air. However, those fiery, evil, poisonous mosquitoes flew extremely fast and at extremely tricky angles. In a moment of carelessness, several guards were bitten. Immediately, a wave of evil fire burned from their bodies. This burn scared the many guards around them and they hurriedly moved aside. Just as they moved aside, a gap appeared in the group of guards that surrounded the two princes. With a buzzing sound, two fiery, evil, poisonous mosquitoes flapped their wings and flew in that direction. Their speed was abnormally fast and they flew in front of the second prince in just a few seconds. Cold sweat dripped down the second prince's head. His eyes were fixed on the two mosquitoes flying in front of him, and his eyes couldn't help but meet at a point. When he saw the two fiery, evil, poisonous mosquitoes flapping their wings and flying towards his face with a buzzing sound. The second prince didn't say anything and hurriedly opened his defensive spirit tool. At the same time, he pulled a guard in front of him to block. That guard was bitten by the poisonous mosquito and a flame ignited in his body. As for the other poisonous mosquito that pounced on the second prince's face, it was blocked by his defensive barrier. The second prince let out a sigh of relief and secretly rejoiced in his heart. It seemed that these poisonous mosquitoes couldn't break through his level 15 defensive spirit tool for the time being. However, as soon as the defensive spiritual artifact was activated, the spiritual energy in his body was being consumed at an abnormally fast rate. In order to prevent himself from dying from the exhaustion of his spiritual power, the second prince hurriedly grabbed the third prince. The two of them were escorted into the inner hall by the guards. They sealed all the doors and windows, and only then did their bodies collapse weakly. The third prince's face was a little pale as he said, "I didn't expect fourth prince to be so vicious." Not only did he chop off the assassin's head, but he also gave him a few mosquitoes that could poison people. If it wasn't for the fact that there were too few of them, he and his second brother might have really died there. "It's still all right," the third prince stammered. "There aren't many mosquitoes. Otherwise, both of us brothers would have died here." The second prince's face was full of malice. "Do you think he didn't think that such a small number of poisonous mosquitoes is not enough to kill us? Then he is." The third prince raised his head and looked at his second brother in astonishment. "He did it on purpose." The second prince gritted his teeth and said, "He deliberately tormented us and used this as a pretext to tell us not to act blindly without thinking. Rosé, he has countless ways to make us brothers die quietly." The third prince shuddered. But he saw the second prince's eyes ruthlessly say, "I'll send someone to Jiawei City right now and see how long he can be arrogant and despotic. Fourth Duan, if you block the way, you deserve to die." Chapter 4095. The second prince has already received your highness's gift, the hidden guard Ing reported dryly with downcast eyes. Duan Yu leaned against the window, his fingers casually flipping through a book, but his eyes didn't linger on it at all. "Return to the academy in 3 days." Ing was taken aback. Is it because of the Heaven Origin Tournament's finals? But with His Majesty's current condition, it seems somewhat unwise for your highness to leave at this time. Everyone knew that it was better to stay in Phoenix Emperor City at this critical time. Duan Yu knitted his brows. "I have an appointment with someone." Ing sighed. He knew he couldn't persuade him, so he didn't say anything else. As a subordinate, he would do whatever his master said. At this time, a person appeared from the window, and his figure swayed slightly. Ing quickly walked out the door and soon returned to Duan Yu's side. "Your Highness, there's news from the second prince's side. That person sent people to Jiaowei City overnight." Duan Yu blinked, and his fingers subconsciously flipped through a page of his book. He asked dryly, "He wants to hire assassins again? Didn't he have anything more interesting?" His methods were so inferior that it was simply disappointing. "Your Highness, we've already sent people to keep an eye on them. Should we?" Duan Yu waved his hand absent-mindedly. "No need. Since it's something that can be solved with money, why go through so much trouble?" He said indifferently, "You also go and issue a mission." Ing bowed obediently in astonishment, and his expression was a bit odd when he left. In terms of spending money? Could this second prince compare to His Highness in terms of wealth? However, the second prince would probably cry if His Highness screwed him over like this. "We don't have enough men of sacrifice recently. If the people from Jiaowei City come, you will lead people to capture them. Whether it's feeding them drugs or extracting their souls, we'll keep them for our own use. Let these people do the dangerous missions. Don't worry, I have plenty of puppet talismans. You just need to lead people to capture them. This will also prevent our people from going out on missions. I'm always worried that your brains aren't good enough and you'll be tricked to death. It's not easy for us to nurture you all." Ha! Ing walked out with a twitch of his mouth. He waved his hand, and several figures appeared beside him. "Do you understand what your Highness means? I want him alive. After capturing them, search their belongings and gather enough money to go to Jiaowei City and issue a mission to protect His Highness." The worst part was His Highness had said that anyone who came from Jiaowei City was basically a fugitive. Regardless of whether they came to kill him or to protect him, he would capture them and keep them alive. Whose Highness could be so deceitful? This was the prelude to causing trouble. If the city lord of Jiaowei City knew the details, it was unknown whether or not he would come to His Highness with his sword. His black city had suddenly become empty. All the assassins had been taken away. This was not someone's deliberate bait. He had walked right into the trap. At the same time, Dean Yun, who was far away in Wind Thunder City, had successively received a few groups of students and instructors of the academy. At this moment, the dean was listening to the report of a student who had rushed in with a dumbfounded expression. "Someone else is here." Yun Piaomiao asked expressionlessly, "What amazing academy came this time?" He really wanted to ask the people in charge of these academies if they had nothing better to do. Chapter 4096. What did the Imperial Academy's Tianyuan ranking finals have to do with you people? Did you have nothing better to do? You came to the Imperial Academy to watch the competition, but in reality you came to pick a fight. Yun Piaomiao paced back and forth on Ethereal Peak with his hands behind his back. "Go, ask the little stoic when they're coming back." This was truly incredible. There were so many other academies fighting their way to the Imperial Academy, so how could they not accept the challenge? Wouldn't they be cowards if they didn't accept the challenge? The Crown Princess and the others should be back on the day of the competition, the Cultivation Hall's chief Elder Ku said with a chuckle as he sipped tea from his teacup. "But you don't have to worry." Elder Ku took another sip of tea and said with a chuckle, "The little Crown Princess and the others are very responsible. They probably won't abandon our academy. They'll naturally come back when the time comes." Yun Piaomiao really wanted to chuckle at him. The little fellow was so angry when she left. I wonder if she'll be so angry that she won't come back. How's that possible? Elder Ku waved his hand vigorously. Although I haven't interacted with this child for a long time, I understand her personality very well. You understand? Yun Piaomiao couldn't resist rolling his eyes. What kind of understanding do you have? Of course. Elder Ku chuckled and stroked his extremely smooth beard. A little fellow like the little stoic who has a sharp tongue but a soft heart won't blame Headmaster Yun Fei. A proud little fellow like that will only blame herself when something happens. How could she blame others? Yun Piaomiao was startled when he heard this. He then turned to glance at Elder Ku and nodded pensively. Elder, you're quite knowledgeable. Elder Ku huffed and glared as he snorted. I've crossed more bridges than you've walked on. I've read the world's myriad forms. Is there anything I don't know? All right. Don't worry. Let's settle down those academies who came to cause trouble first. Headmaster. The two team mentors from Umbra Academy and Joe Academy request an audience. Yun Piaomiao's handsome face tensed up, revealing a displeased expression. These people really don't know when to stop? Yun Piaomiao raised her head and saw two instructors, one tall and one short, one fat and one skinny, walking towards her with a smile on their faces. Dean Yun, it's an honor to meet you. Yun Piaomiao looked at the two expressionlessly. Oh, so it's Instructor He Wei from the Umbra Academy and Instructor Kuo Fu from the Joe Academy. It's an honor to meet you. The middle-aged scholar, Instructor He Wei, laughed dryly. He could see the dissatisfaction in Dean Yun's eyes. He hurriedly said with a smile, Dean, please forgive me for taking the liberty to visit you. Yun Piaomiao waved her hand and said indifferently, Are the two instructors uncomfortable living in the academy? No. Instructor He Wei hurriedly said with a smile, The academy's hospitality is very considerate. I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Before Yun Piaomiao could say anything, the short, fat and broad-axe instructor spoke in a booming voice. I'm here to discuss the heaven-ranking battle with Dean Yun. Yun Piaomiao was confused. What do you mean? It's the heaven-ranking battle. Why do I need to discuss it with you outsiders? Instructor Kuo Fu chuckled. Since so many academies have gathered in Wind Thunder City, why don't we have a big competition? Chapter 4097. Flap, flap, flap. A small mechanical bird paced back and forth outside the window, knocking on the window. Lord Jojo, who was lying by the window and playing with Xiao Bao's precious beast, squinted her big watery eyes and glanced at that fellow listlessly. These few days, she was busy supervising the Mu family's group of troublemakers to practice martial arts, which made her unbearably busy. Today, she finally had nothing to do, so she was lying here and dozing off for a while. Who knew that a mechanical bird would come? At a glance, it was obvious that this mechanical bird was sent by that fellow Yun Piaomiao. When Arbor thought of Yun Piaomiao, she thought of her brother Yun Fiang and couldn't help but secretly get angry. She allowed that mechanical bird to continuously peck at the window. After a long while, she impatiently opened the window and let that little fellow fly in. After the little mechanical bird hopped in, it opened its beak and spat out a roll of paper. Its beak opened and closed, saying, The location of the final match has been changed to Joe City's St. Joe Arena. Please arrive at Joe City's St. Joe Arena on time before 7 o'clock 3 days later. No waiting for you. Arbor suddenly sat up straight. For a moment, she thought that she was hearing things. She grabbed that mechanical bird back and patted its head. The little machine-operated bird miserably repeated what it had just said. Lord Jojo expressionlessly patted it again. The little mechanical bird repeated. She patted it again. And again when she patted the bird's head for the 5th time, Prince Mo was just about to stride into the bedroom. She heard that mechanical bird let out a flustered and exasperated cry. Are you done yet? How many times do you repeat that sentence? Please arrive at Joe City's St. Joe Arena on time before 7 o'clock 3 days later. No waiting for you. Flap, 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 flap. The little mechanical bird vigorously flapped its wings and angrily hopped out of the window. It flapped its wings and flew high up into the blue sky. Arbor expressionlessly looked at the bird that flew out. She stretched out her finger and poked Xiao Bao's precious beast, whose butt was facing her. Xiao Bao's precious beast had probably already been oppressed. Right now, it didn't even want to move its butt. When she poked it, it shook its body slightly and continued to lie on the table, pretending to be dead. Mo Lien couldn't help but twitch her lips. How deranged was his little wife to the point that none of the little beasts wanted to pay attention to her. The only weirdo who could anger the mechanical bird was probably his little wife. Lady Qiao Qiao expressionlessly raised her head and looked at her husband who was walking in from the door. She raised her small arm. Mo Lien immediately hurried over and picked her up with a smile. Together, They sat on the couch in front of the window. He rubbed his head against her small face and asked, "Wifey, what's going on? That mechanical bird just now, was it sent by the academy to inform us of the competition time?" "Well, it's broken," Arbor said expressionlessly. Emolien wanted to laugh but quickly held it back. How could it be broken? It repeated itself 5 or 6 times, asking us to go to some arena in Joe City for the competition. If it's not broken, then what is it? He had never heard of the Royal School's Heavenly Yuan ranking competition being held at Joe City's underground black market's battle arena. What was wrong with it? Emolien took the roll of paper from the little girl's hand and flipped it open. She read 10 lines at a glance and smiled. Joe Academy, Umbra Academy, and the rest of the 6 academies have all gone to Wind Thunder City to look for Principal Yun. Originally, they were only going to watch the competition. In the end, Instructor Kwafu from Joe Academy proposed to upgrade the Heavenly Yuan ranking competition to a competition that all the academies in the 3 continents can participate in. Chapter 4098. The little girl pursed her lips disinterestedly. I don't want to go anymore. Since any Tom, Dick, and Harry could participate in this Heavenly Yuan ranking competition, then wasn't the previous preliminaries meaningless? Emolien immediately understood the little emperor's meaning and couldn't help but pinch her small face in amusement. Don't worry, those academies that plan to participate in the Heavenly Yuan ranking competition will hand over a large amount of resources to participate. In addition, they also have to participate in the preliminaries. The preliminaries are only 3 days long, but the intensity should be greater than the danger we encountered when we went to Phoenix Grove last time. Moreover, after the preliminaries, there's basically no time for them to rest and reorganize. They'll directly enter the finals. Arbor took the paper from the man's hand and looked at the instructions and regulations on it. He nodded and said, Joe Academy and the others will agree to such harsh conditions. They must be plotting something. It was no wonder that the little fellow thought of them as a conspiracy. They truly wanted to participate in this competition with such a strenuous and unrewarding task, yet they still had to invite everyone from the Royal Academy to Joe City to participate in the competition? No matter how one looked at it, it looked like they were plotting something. Emolien smiled faintly and picked up the little fellow, walking towards the bathing pool. Who cared what kind of conspiracy they were scheming? In any case, if they dared to scheme against them, they would just smack them to death. The little girl tugged at the corner of his lapel and raised her large eyes to glance at him defensively. What are you trying to do in broad daylight? Emolien blinked and looked at his wife innocently. Taking a bath? What bath in broad daylight? The little stoic was a bit speechless. After washing up, this hubby will accompany you for an afternoon nap. Jojo, you used to take an afternoon nap every day when you were young. Now that you're a few years older, it seems like you also take less afternoon naps. Nonsense. The little stoic stubbornly refused to admit her mistake. Which day am I not cultivating? Who takes an afternoon nap? Your whole family takes afternoon naps. Emolien grinned and rubbed his head against her head. Jojo, be good. Eat more and sleep well, then our baby will grow Io. Why are you hitting your hubby's head? The afternoon sun brushed past the window lattice. Little Treasure was lying there peacefully, as if it had nothing to live for. It was sad and beautiful. In the bustling harbor, ships of all sizes shuttled back and forth. There were ships anchored at the shore and magnificent pleasure boats slowly docked at the shore. There were even more large cargo ships. One after another, they loaded and unloaded their cargo, shuttling back and forth in an endless stream. Lady Jojo stood at the bow of the ship. She was dressed in a rose-colored dress and wore a jade phoenix hairpin on her head. Her face was devoid of any expression as usual. Hugging a round treasure beast, the little stoic leaned against the crown prince's side and surveyed the surroundings for a while before looking up at the crown prince. We've arrived? Because they had never been to Joe City before, the teleportation glyph array wasn't sure if it could teleport them to the city in one go. Therefore, Emolien brought Tong and the others to a nearby teleportation portal in Arbor. Seeing that Joe City wasn't too far away, they directly took a ship to come over. She felt that it was more reliable. Classmate Xiao, classmate Mo, you finally arrived. Pa. A burst of hearty laughter came from the front. Arbor and the others looked up and saw Instructor Ma from the cultivation hall leading 17 to 18 students to welcome them with a grin. His expression was full of gratitude that said, "You've finally arrived." Chapter 4099. The little stoic looked around. Where are Xian and the others? The cultivation hall's mentor Ma laughed mockingly and said, Yesterday, student Xian and the others had a conflict with several students from Joe Academy. Student Qi Xian and student Ko Hongwen both suffered minor injuries. Seeing the little stoic's small face instantly darken, mentor Ma hastily waved his hand and said, "But don't worry, the other party is 100 times more miserable than them. They aren't minor injuries." Mo Lien led her displeased wifey down the ship's bow and glanced at mentor Ma. "Why is that?" Mentor Ma sighed with a bitter expression. "This matter is a bit complicated. Let's return to the Academy's encampment first." Arbor and Mo Lien naturally wouldn't refuse. Since the Academy had already arranged accommodations for them, then that was for the best. It would save them the trouble of looking all over the place to find a place to stay. Mentor Ma and the others enthusiastically led them to the Academy's accommodations. This competition will probably last for about 7 days. Mentor Ma led the way in front and turned to say to them with a chuckle, "Principal Yun has a manor in Joe City, and it's not far from Joe Arena. We'll stay in that manor for a while for the time being." Arbor couldn't help but interrupt as he listened to the mentors nagging along the way. "What's going on at Joe Academy?" Mentor Ma was hesitating on how to speak when a student beside him couldn't resist saying, "It's our first time coming to Joe City. I feel like their night market is quite lively. Especially at night, it's quite nice to walk through the streets and have a drink or two in Joe City's taverns. After we settled down, we invited some friends to the tavern for a drink yesterday. At that time, student Ko Hongwen and student Xian also went with us to play. Who knew that we would run into Joe Academy's green-haired group along the way, and everyone got into a fight at the slightest disagreement." Another student beside him hastily interjected, "What slightest disagreement? They were the ones who started it. That green-haired bastard was fucking arrogant and acted like a big brother in front of us. He said he was the relative of the Mad Python mercenary group's vice commander, the largest mercenary group in Joe City. You're pretty good at cursing, but you don't have any skills. You were slapped to the ground by Xian. That's right. This green-haired guy was stunned by Xian's slap and didn't get up for a long time. After that, the people from their academy went crazy and attacked us. If it wasn't for the fact that they had the advantage in numbers, we would have fought them to the end last night." Mentor Ma smacked the student's head with the back of his hand and scolded in exasperation, "The academy sent you out to train, not to cause trouble and fight all day long. Teacher, fighting is also a form of training. All right, we're just around the corner. If you have anything to say, we'll talk when we get back." Mentor Ma chuckled and said to Arbor, "Student Xiao, don't worry. Student Xian and the others are fine." "You call this nothing serious?" The little stoic's small stoic face was taut as she expressionlessly picked up the little fatty's drooping arm. Little fatty immediately squealed like a pig being slaughtered. Mentor Ma's face turned green. "What's going on? You weren't injured that badly just now." "Mentor, the people from Joe Academy just came to beat us up," several students shouted, filled with righteous indignation. Chapter 4100. Right. That green-haired guy brought a few experts and gave little fatty a good beating. We couldn't even stop him in time. "Oh my waist. Qi Xian clutched her waist and waved her hand to have the students supporting her move more gently. "Jojo, Your Highness the Crown Prince, you're here." Qi Xian forced a smile at the little stoic with a bitter expression. "Don't pull a long face, I'm fine. Don't listen to their nonsense, it's not that serious." "Which green-haired guy?" Arbor asked irritably. Did he have nothing better to do? It wasn't enough that he finished a match yesterday, and he even specially came to fight today? What the heck? Little Fatty shifted to the side and supported Qi Xianxian to sit down. He huffed. If it weren't for Duanmu and the others being in closed-door cultivation, how could we have lost to them? Arbor knitted his brows in displeasure and took out his needle bag. Xianxian, I'll give you 2 injections first. Everyone watched from the side as the young crown prince consort swiftly pierced Qi Xuanxuan's waist twice before throwing an elixir to Qi Xianxian. Within a few minutes, Xuanxuan's sprained waist healed a lot, and she could stand up and move around freely. Don't sprain it again today. Arbor frowned as he glanced at her. How can I sprain it again and again? Qi Xianxian felt much more energetic. She paced back and forth in the room a few times and shouted in a huff, if it weren't for that green-haired guy bringing a group of people to make trouble for us, how could I have sprained my waist? She was angry just thinking about it. At that time, everyone was in closed-door cultivation in their own rooms. Green-haired guy suddenly barged in and quickly found her and Little Fatty from Iridescent Peak Court. He called them without a second word and didn't even give them a chance to react. The competition was tomorrow, and everyone was making the best use of their remaining time to train and cultivate in closed-door cultivation. Who knew that such a thing would happen? When some of the people who were training or in seclusion were awakened and rushed out, Little Fatty was protecting Qi Xianxian. He was surrounded and beaten up by a few people. His arm was even broken. The most hateful thing was that when the green-haired man saw that the people from the royal school had come out, he immediately led his men and left the manor, disappearing without a trace. As she spoke, the little stoic also treated the Little Fatty's broken arm. She held his arm and moved it back and forth. How do you feel? I don't feel anything. The Little Fatty laughed honestly and quickly flattered. Jojo, your medical skills are really good. Jojo's expression was a little scary. Fatty thought that it would be better for him to behave himself. Humph. Arbor glanced at him expressionlessly. Why didn't you use the talisman? It wasn't like she didn't throw them talismans. How could they not know how to throw offensive and defensive talismans when they were beaten to such a state? Fatty shrunk his neck. I felt that, unless it was absolutely necessary, he bit his lower lip and hastily shut his mouth under the little stoic's severe gaze. When our dear Qi Xianxian saw this, she hastily came up to smooth things over. Jojo, it's actually nothing. She scratched her head. The other party didn't want our lives. Arbor swept them a glance and knew what these 2 fools were thinking. They felt that they couldn't rely on external objects for everything. Whether it was pills or talismans, how could they not have them on them? Chapter 4101. They all had them, and there were quite a few of them, so it wasn't a problem to use them freely. However, they were thinking that they could resolve this kind of trivial matter themselves and didn't need to rely on external forces for everything. Are you idiots? I have no objections to you fighting in a fair environment. But we're being ganged up on right now. Ganged up on. The little stoic irritably poked the Little Fatty's head and roared, Are you a sandbag? Why can they casually beat you guys up to vent their anger just because they're unhappy? That's right. Don't you know how to call for help? We're all in the room. Call out and everyone will come out. Let's see if they still dare to be so arrogant. Jiaowei City doesn't have a rule that forbids fighting before the competition. They dare to be so unbridled because they're certain that nothing will happen even if they beat you guys up. Xiao Mu coldly surveyed them from head to toe. What exactly did you guys do? They actually came to gang up on you guys? We didn't do anything? Qi Xianxian bashfully glanced at the little stoic. The little stoic. She kept feeling that there was something wrong with these 2 fellows. Mo Lien stifled her laughter and walked up to pull her wife's small hand. She glanced at Qi Xianxian and the Little Fatty. Why aren't you confessing? Confess, we'll confess everything. The Little Fatty hastily nodded and said, Nothing major actually happened at Sikong Tavern yesterday. We just quarreled with Green Hair a bit. Many students around them looked at them curiously, and one of them said, Speaking of which, yesterday's incident was really a bit strange. When you guys started quarreling with Green Hair and the others, we were watching a vaudeville performance. In the end, they didn't know why they started quarreling with each other. Moreover, they even came to their encampment afterwards? It had freaking happened a day ago. How bizarre. Speaking of enmity, there didn't seem to be any. They only chased the fatty to the encampment and beat him up. The little fatty smiled good-naturedly and reached out to hold Qi Xuanxuan's hand. He then said indignantly, "Speaking of which, it's all that brother's fault. Everything was fine yesterday, but you all went to watch the vaudeville show. Xian Xian and I were eating in a corner of the tavern, and we didn't offend anyone." Suddenly, that guy said sourly, "Yo, you're so fat, but you can still find a pretty girl." I replied to him, "You're a single dog, what are you bullshitting about? I'll beat you up if you continue to bullshit." Everyone was speechless. Mo Lian's lips twitched. Then, without saying a word, that brother actually drew his sword and attacked me. Little Fatty said angrily, "Do you think he's crazy? He even said that I insulted him? How did I insult him? Didn't I just call him a single dog?" Arbor looked at them expressionlessly. His eyes kept looking at their intertwined hands. "So, you two have decided? Why didn't he get to the point earlier?" All the students revealed an expression that said, "So that's how it is. Fuck, so he was beaten for showing off his love. Hehe, isn't this a classic example of abusing a single dog and getting bitten by a dog? Apui, who's the dog?" Arbor was silent for a moment. "Then why did they come to beat you up today? Everything about this incident was strange, all right? Speaking of which, they had already beaten them up yesterday. Shouldn't they have vented their anger? Why did they do this today?" Qi Xianxian quickly said. Before the fatty left, he told them the address of this place and told them to challenge him if they were unhappy. Chapter 4102. So that's how it was. No wonder they were so accurate and even knew to look for Fatty Sun and the others in Iridescent Peak Court. Everyone couldn't help but facepalm and stare at student Ko Hongwen as if they were looking at an idiot. The little fatty rubbed his nose and said embarrassedly, "Didn't I, cough yesterday? Even though I lost, I didn't lose." "So you were the one who sent yourself to be beaten up?" The little fatty angrily pulled Qi Xuanxuan's hand. "Who did we disturb when we were eating in the tavern? He was the one who came up to tease my wife. If I wasn't beaten up by the crowd, would I have lost?" Arbor expressionlessly looked at the little fatty for a while and patted his shoulder. This man, what a combative creature. Most importantly, he wanted to keep up appearances and suffer. No wonder he didn't want to use talismans. He wanted to protect his wife with his own strength. Although he was childish and a little stupid, there was an indescribable feeling of love. Arbor's tense little face relaxed a little. "Remember to tell me if you feel uncomfortable." "Okay." The little fatty heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't know why, but he didn't dare to speak when Sir Jojo's face was tense. "Point him out later." "Let's go beat him up too," Arbor said expressionlessly. After all, there had to be reciprocation. Otherwise, would they be beaten up for nothing? Everyone. The little girl was indeed someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. This was clearly a disturbance caused by abusing single people. The other person's heart was already hurt. Did she want him to be hurt physically too? However, seeing that the stoic face still didn't look good, everyone shut their mouths in unison. Tomorrow's competition? "Student Xiao, let me explain the competition rules to you," Mentor Ma said with a smile. Arbor nodded and got up to pull Mo Lian to sit down. "How bad are the rules? Let's talk about it." Mentor Ma couldn't help but twitch his mouth and hurriedly said, "It's not bad. It's definitely not bad." The Tianyuan competition was divided into 6 arenas. The competition would be held simultaneously. To be able to obtain the right to fight in the main arena, one had to be one of the top 100 seeded contestants. Previously, after Feng Mulin's preliminary round, the Royal School had eliminated 10,000 students. This time, only 3,000 students would be able to enter the final round. Fortunately, Dean Yun had his own large manor in Jiawei City. It was more than enough to accommodate over 3,000 teachers and students. Otherwise, with so many teachers and students coming to Jiawei City, it would be difficult to find an inn. This competition is very simple. It's just a point system. If you win 1 match, you'll get 10 points. If you win 5 matches in a row, you'll get an additional 50 points. 10 consecutive wins plus 200 points. The more consecutive victories you have, the more points you'll get. The details will be announced on the points board during the competition. Correspondingly, the deduction of points is also very fierce. Consecutive losses will also result in additional deduction of points. Mentor Ma chuckled as he continued. Therefore, in this competition, there might be a phenomenon of a few thousand people with high scores and a series of deductions for low scores. Students, work hard. There are no restrictions in the competition, so the degree of freedom is very high. In other words, as long as you have the means, just use them. Hearing this, Arbor looked at Mentor Ma in astonishment. That's strange. The rules of the Tianyuan competition seem to be very generous. Who was the generous person who came up with these rules? Students, make good use of your remaining time and work hard. Tomorrow morning, Mentor Ma will be back to bring you to the arena. Chapter 4103. Arbor followed the little fatty and Qi Xianxian, who were chatting and laughing along the way. When she arrived at the entrance of Iridescent Peak Court, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. Suddenly, a thin figure appeared in front of her. She staggered a step before quickly stabilizing herself. This guy looked around in bewilderment. When he came back to his senses, he saw the young Crown Prince Consort standing in front of him. He jumped in fright and hastily bowed. Crown Prince Consort? Arbor nodded expressionlessly. Where am I? Strange, shouldn't he be in the Mu family's territory? Hey, young man, you're a child of the Mu family? The little fatty walked up curiously and patted him on the shoulder. This guy hurriedly nodded, then looked at the young Crown Princess in confusion. Crown Princess, may I ask, where is this place? This is Jiawei City. The other party immediately showed an even more confused expression, probably 10,000 curses galloping through his heart. Fuck, how did he end up in a dangerous place like Jiawei City's black market after training in Chaoyang Pavilion for a while? It was said that there were no rules in Jiawei City. People who came and went spoke with their fists. Whoever had the bigger fist had the loudest voice. Every day, who knew how many people died unnatural deaths because of picking fights? May I ask, am I here? The thin man asked with a strange expression. Arbor was silent. Mo Lien beside her couldn't help but twitch her mouth. She held back her laughter and said, You're Mu Jiating, right? That's right. Mu Jiating naturally recognized the Crown Prince. He hurriedly saluted the Crown Prince. Your Highness, this one is Mu Jiating of the Mu family's side branch. A while ago, this one was fortunate enough to go to Chaoyang Pavilion set up by Ancestor Chaoyang to train, and made it all the way to the 49th floor. Mu Jiating seemed to be very gratified. Speaking up to hear, he couldn't help but smile, then continued, I wonder how the others are doing now? By the way, Crown Princess, you also went to Chaoyang Pavilion at that time, right? I wonder which floor the Crown Princess made it to, 99. Mu Jiating's mouth instantly opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. Excuse me, may I know how many people are in the top management? 99. Jojo replied expressionlessly, You've been in Chaoyang restaurant for 2 months. The others have already come out. That's right, he was the one who had entered Chaoyang Tower with Jojo and had only just completed the challenge Mu Jiating. It wasn't that Jojo, Sama wanted to ridicule this guy, but this guy's personality was too slow. Even a turtle could crawl faster than him, okay? He wasn't afraid that others would laugh at him, because this guy was so slow that even the heavens couldn't tolerate it. Sir Jojo even went to Chaoyang restaurant to secretly observe him. He realized that this guy was seriously trying to break through the levels, working hard, cultivating, breaking through, and working even harder. He was speechless. The reason why this guy was slow was because every time he cleared a level, he would go into seclusion to cultivate for a while. Before he recovered all his spiritual power, this guy definitely wouldn't rashly rush to the next level. Therefore, the higher he went, the more dangerous the place was. Chaoyang Pavilion was full of traps, and it was very difficult to break through the array core. This guy relied on his tenacity and willpower that ordinary people didn't have, and steadily advanced. With this strange talent, he reached the 49th floor. Chapter 4104. In fact, After reaching the 40th floor, this guy would need 3 to 5 days to recover his spiritual energy every time. To tell the truth, Arbor completely forgot about this oddball later on. After all, they went to challenge Morning Sun Pavilion before her wedding on June 6th. It was freaking the end of July now. It would be weird if she remembered this guy after that. The little stoic allowed him to stay in Morning Sun Pavilion. It had nothing to do with her whether he wanted to challenge it until the end of time. Until just now, when she suddenly sensed this person being sent flying out of Morning Sun Pavilion, the little stoic hastily stopped and directly pulled his flying body in front of her. Mu Jiating simply didn't pay attention to where he flew out from. He only thought that he came out of Morning Sun Pavilion and was directly flung outside. He didn't notice that his body had stopped in midair in the star domain for a split second. A steady stream of divine power cleansed his meridians, causing his entire body to involuntarily tremble. He only faintly smelled the salty and moist scent of the sea breeze. Then why did I appear here? The little fatty looked sympathetically at Mu Jiating, this pitiful child. He knew that his little stoic definitely couldn't be bothered to explain to this guy, so he patted his shoulder. You can stay here for the time being. You'll return with us in a few days. Don't worry, it won't be too dangerous. I'll take you out to drink tonight. Qi Xianxian pinched her nose and glanced at him. But before that, you better wash yourself clean first. Mu Jiating turned around and saw that the little stoic and His Highness the Crown Prince had long abandoned him and left with disdainful expressions. Only then did he realize that his clothes were stuffed with filth. His perfectly fine white training clothes were so black that its original color couldn't be discerned. No, my apologies. Brother, can you bring me to my room to bathe and change? Come with me. The little fatty smiled enthusiastically. Oh, that's right, I still have to ask the Crown Princess later. She actually made it out of Morning Sun Pavilion's 99th floor. I wonder how long it took her. Oh, you can just ask me about this. The little fatty's face was beaming, giving this guy a knowing blow. Jojo spent 1 day and 1 night to reach the 99th floor of Morning Sun Pavilion. Her name is now written on the stone tablet in front of your Morning Sun Pavilion. The little fatty smiled brilliantly. Morning Sun Pavilion was currently located on an island on Fish Orchid Planet. Who didn't know of the little girl's brave feat of breaking through Morning Sun Pavilion's 99th floor? Mu Jiating's jaw dropped. Morning Sun Pavilion's residence, Morning Sun Pavilion's floor, Morning Sun Pavilion, Morning Sun Pavilion's Morning Sun Pavilion. The little stoic looked around in displeasure before looking up at Mo Lien and saying, that guy didn't come. Morning sun, morning sun, morning sun, morning sun, morning sun, morning palace, morning night. Something happened in the palace and it will probably take a few days to deal with it. Will you be okay? Xiao Mu looked up at him. There is indeed something, but it's not that he's in trouble. It's that the Zhangzhou Emperor is about to die. Mo Lien whispered into her ear. Suddenly, a laugh was heard. Ah, I was wondering why the magpies were chirping this morning. It turns out they saw my Jojo. Prince Mo irritably threw him a cold glance. Eldest young Sir Qin blinked innocently at him and asked sarcastically, why didn't little fourth Duan come? Chapter 4105. Arbor glanced at him and suddenly discovered a row of lackeys standing behind eldest Qin, who looked like a smiling tiger. He habitually ignored the Omega Kotoku, who had an icy expression and was as slender as a bamboo. Behind this guy, there was actually 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shit, both those he had seen before and those he hadn't seen before. The entire Qin family's youngsters must have all come. The little stoic expressionlessly swept a glance over them. Her eyeballs merely swiveled in a circle before she immediately retracted her gaze. Was Jiaowei City's scenery unique? She had actually attracted the entire Qin family here? When Qinjiao saw her, his eyes clearly brightened, and he chuckled as he skipped forward. Jojo, when little Qinjiao saw Prince Mo's icy gaze sweeping over him, he hastily corrected himself. Crown Princess, why don't I see Duan Yu? The little stoic was clearly in a bad mood. She glanced at him and reluctantly responded out of politeness, he didn't come. As a result, These two words seemed to open Qin Jio's long-sealed chatterbox, and he immediately fired off a barrage of questions. Was he delayed by something? Oh right, I heard that something happened in Songzhou, right? Did something happen to Duan Yu's mother? Duan Yu will be fine, right? Say, should we find a chance to go to Songzhou and see Io? A strong force suddenly pushed Qin Jio away from behind. Alright, don't worry about it. Whether His Highness Prince Chen of Songzhou is fine or not, it has nothing to do with you. Don't block the way. A rude and unreasonable voice interrupted Qin Jio's words. The person strode boldly to Prince Imo and the little crown princess and sized them up. A strange smile suddenly appeared on his face. This humble one is Prince Danhua of the barbarian tribe. Greetings to His Highness the Crown Prince of the Divine Province and the Crown Princess. This person held his hand across his chest. Although he saluted, his attitude was extremely arrogant and rude. When he spoke, he kept his chin slightly raised, as if he was looking at people with his nostrils. Previously, this prince has been training in the vicinity of Jiaowei City, but I haven't seen any of you. That dark and sturdy Prince Kuo sized up the little crown princess again, and a malicious smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It is said that previously, my brother Zulu was beaten up by you. Eldest young Sir Qin couldn't help but rub his forehead. In the blink of an eye, before Prince Chaohua could finish his words, his body strangely flew into the air. Everyone around couldn't help but twitch their mouths. With a loud bang, Yun Piaomiao, who was walking out of the room, looked speechlessly at the figure that abruptly crashed into the wall beside him. He silently glanced in the little stoic's direction. The stoic face's gaze was serene and unruffled, as if the one who sent the person flying with a kick just now wasn't himself. Cough. Dean Yun pretended to cough and gave Elder Ku, whose mouth was twitching, a look. Elder Ku raised his hand and motioned for the two disciples behind him to help Prince Chaohua, whose head was covered in blood, up. The other party's head was bleeding from this kick, and he was so angry that his entire body was trembling. His body swayed, and he was a bit disoriented even after being helped up. You. Prince Chaohua's face darkened as he lowered his head to look at a small footprint on his chest. He was so angry that he couldn't even speak clearly. Chapter 4106. Headmaster, she kicked people for no reason. How can the academy tolerate the existence of such a person? Yun Piaomiao coughed lightly and walked over with Elder Ku and the others. Arbor's gaze landed on Yun Fiang, who was walking behind him. Last time, she was so angry that she stayed at the academy for a while before leaving with her master. Before leaving the academy, she didn't even say goodbye to Yun Piaomiao and the others, nor did she see Yun Fiang. Logically, she wouldn't blame Yun Fiang. But emotionally, how could she not blame him? Blame him for hiding the truth. If they trusted her more from the start and told her the truth, she wouldn't have to take such a detour now. Thankfully, she already had a way to remedy the situation. The next step was to refine the restoration pill and let the 3 puppies grow into holy beasts. When she thought of this, Arbor massaged her small head with a headache. It was easy to think about but extremely difficult to do. Especially how to let these 3 puppies recover their holy beast form. This was probably going to take a while. And what she lacked right now was time. After the soul return pill she ate last time lost its effect, her master's remaining strand of soul could only last for another year at most. Thankfully, Murong Sun was currently in her star domain and was surrounded by dense divine energy. In addition, she used the soul calming frost jade to lock her remnant soul. Murong Sun would be able to last for a while. No matter what, she wouldn't allow anything to happen to Murong Sun. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Mu remained silent as she watched Yun Fei slowly walk up to her. Jojo, let's talk alone. Yun Fiang sighed. Arbor glanced at him and nodded. Just as she was about to leave with Headmaster Yun Fiang, she saw the blood-drenched horse-eater squeezing forward with great effort and angrily shouting, "You can't leave." Headmaster, what do you mean? Didn't you see that she attacked first? Yun Piaomiao speechlessly glanced at this guy. She originally didn't want to interfere in this matter, but this barbarian tribe's people were all a bit rash and careless. If she ignored him, this matter would definitely continue without end. Is there some misunderstanding? What misunderstanding could there be? Prince Dewa shouted angrily, "This arrogant woman, she kicked me in the chest just now, everyone saw it. If you don't believe me, ask them." Prince Dewa's fingers slid past the group of young masters of the Qin estate before pointing at Ming Yasi, Dao, and the others who were watching the show from the beginning. Everyone had a strange look on their faces. They glanced at him but didn't say anything. Yun Piaomiao looked at the situation in front of her and was speechless. She cleared her throat and asked as usual, "Did any of you here see student Xiao kicking student Huahua?" Everyone looked at Principal Yun expressionlessly, and no one paid any attention to him. It was hard for this dean to smile and nod when no one paid any attention to him. He then said, "That's great. Since it's just a misunderstanding, let's get ready to set off now. Students, time waits for no one. If we're late, who knows what the other party will do?" Someone looked at Hua sympathetically, thinking that he was about to explode from anger. Sure enough, Chao's face was filled with rage and he wanted to say something, but Dean Yun waved his hand and ordered 2 elders to drag him away for treatment. Chapter 4107. Arbor followed Yun Fiang to a side room. Once the room's door closed, Yun Fiang turned around and said apologetically to her, "Sorry, Jojo, you should blame me. I acted on my own and didn't think twice before acting. During this period of time, I have thought about a lot of things, and I have also realized my mistakes." Arbor raised her hand to stop him from speaking. Her clear eyes stared at the slightly pale man in front of her. Both sides of this person's hair had turned white in a short period of time. It could be seen how big of an impact Murong Sun's incident had on him. Arbor couldn't help but sigh in her heart. She said to him solemnly, "Listen to me first. Master, there's actually still hope." She should have told them earlier, but the bit of resentment in her heart made her not want to say anything to them at that time. Yun Fiang, whose complexion was originally slightly pale, looked like he was struck by something when he heard this. He instantly focused his gaze on Arbor with excitement on his face. Really? During this period of time, he buried himself in his study and searched for all sorts of treatment methods after the soul-returning pill lost its effectiveness. Unfortunately, he came up empty-handed. Unexpectedly, the little girl already found a treatment method? "Headmaster, although I have a lot of complaints about you in my heart, most of them are still grateful." The little stoic said bluntly, "After the battle at Holy Water Sect, if you didn't arrive in time and seal her in the ice coffin, I might have never seen her again. Perhaps I wouldn't have been able to see her again in this lifetime." "Jojo, can you really forgive me?" Yun Fiang asked rather emotionally. Xiao Mu nodded. "I've never blamed you." Yun Fiang knew. He knew everything. Even though the little girl never blamed him, the regret in his heart was about to drown him. "Are you willing to believe me? Headmaster, are you willing to try and give me some time to work hard?" "Of course I believe you." Yun Fiang nodded repeatedly and said, "I was foolish before. Now that I know the truth, I naturally won't continue to be foolish." "How can a pill alchemist's growth be linked to age?" Yun Fiang sighed softly and said, "I was too conceited in the past. Princimo was right. There was no lack of geniuses in this world. It was obvious that Jojo was a genius in alchemy. Her growth and future were limitless." "Then wait a bit," Arbor said softly. "I will definitely wake Murong Sun up." "Definitely." The little girl spoke resolutely. In that instant, Yun Fiang felt like he saw Murong Sun's shadow in her. There was a lump in his throat. He smiled to cover up the slight sadness in his heart. "Your master will definitely wake up." "He definitely will." When Yun Fiang followed the little girl out of the room, Yun Piaomiao clearly felt that her elder brother's expression had relaxed a lot. His entire body wasn't as tense as before. He heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but feel somewhat comforted. Although the little girl had a stoic expression on her face all day long and seemed to be emotionless, she was actually very delicate and soft. What a good child, Yun Piaomiao thought with gratification. "Dean, what do you mean by this? Why did you send someone to drag me away?" "Dean!" The barbarian tribe's Prince Nuwa's angry roar came from behind. Yun Piaomiao waved her hand as if she didn't hear him. Prince Nuwa is tired. Please ask him to rest. Chapter 4108. Yun Piaomiao turned around and stared at the students in front of him with an admonishing expression. He earnestly exhorted, "Students, we're currently in Jiawei City, so we can't act in Wind Thunder City's territory. That's because we need to be careful and vigilant at all times. We need to take precautions at all times. We don't know when someone who doesn't get along with you will suddenly pop out and attack us. Our motto is to not cause trouble. But we absolutely won't be afraid of trouble, understand?" The group of students from the royal school replied with an "oh." Yun Piaomiao was immediately dissatisfied. He stood in the air and waved his arm. "Why is everyone so dispirited? You're about to enter Jiawei Arena right now. Every one of you represents the Imperial Academy's honor, understand? Show some spirit, everyone pull yourself together. Understand, students?" "Oh." Everyone grumpily responded again, but this time, their voices soared to the heavens. Yun Piaomiao beamed with joy and nodded. "Since you understand, then let's set off." Everyone followed the group out the door like a wisp of smoke. Yun Piaomiao was all smiles as he hastily drew close to the little Stoics group. "Jojo, have you made things clear with Dean Yunfei?" Arbor expressionlessly glanced at him and nodded his small head reluctantly. "You're truly a good child." Dean Yun lovingly reached out to rub the little fellow's head, but Prince Mo, who was glaring covetously from the side, stared at him until he retracted his hand. The dean resentfully glanced at Mo Lien and coughed lightly, saying, "Student Mo, Student Duan didn't come, so we'll have to rely on you to take first place on the Heaven Origin ranking this time." Mo Lien glanced at him and said indifferently, "I'll rely on my wife." The little Stoic waved her small hand, disdainfully sweeping away a faint fragrance that drifted in front of her. She didn't even bat an eyelid as she nodded and said, "I'll do my best." Dean Yun couldn't help but be stupefied. The little girl's alchemy Dao was indeed exceptional, but if it was in battle? With Prince Mo here, do you think you still have a chance of winning? Most importantly, this little expression of going with the flow and taking it for granted somehow made him feel like he was being cheated. Elder Ku, who was standing at the side, looked at Dean Yun as if he was looking at an idiot. He secretly pinched his arm. "Are you stupid? How could Prince Mo win against his own wife? With your intellect, how could you have been the principal of the royal school for so many years?" Dean Yun came to a sudden realization and hurriedly said, "Oh, oh," followed by a series of awkward laughs. His little eyes secretly peeked at the little girl, and with an expression of trying to find something to talk about, he pretended to be relaxed and asked, "Ah, right, earlier why did student Xiao suddenly make things difficult for student Yuoa?" The little Stoic's face darkened and she grumbled, "His shifty eyes have been staring at me the entire time." The little guy stretched out 2 fingers and gestured the teleportation distance in front of his eyes. "Look, just stare at me like this." I saw it clearly. He kept staring at me. He's an idiot. Everyone, Dean Yun instantly felt like his balls were hurting. Why did he ask such an outlandish question for no reason? Most importantly, the question was outlandish, but the answer was even more outlandish. Dean Yun looked at the little Stoic in front of him with a headache. Chapter 4109. He kept feeling that the little Stoic's visit to Holy Auspicious Arena was the true beginning of the disaster. Those people harboring malicious intentions in Holy Auspicious Arena were probably going to suffer. The little Stoic expressionlessly waved her hand again. Her elegant brows involuntarily creased, and her footsteps unwittingly slowed down. The person walking at the front of the group also paused. When eldest young Sir Qin saw this, he waved his small fan in amusement. He moved closer to Arbor and asked, "What's wrong, Jojo?" The little girl sniffed and confirmed that the fragrance didn't come from this guy's body. When Qin Xian saw this, he also hastily lifted his sleeve to sniff himself. It was a refreshing sweet scent. Other than that, there were no other random fragrances. "It doesn't stink," this guy said plausibly. Yun Piaomiao couldn't resist twitching her eyebrows. Just as she was about to speak, She saw a group turn the corner and jingle jingle. The fragrant wind was coming from that group. There were all kinds of scents, rich and fragrant, as if all the fragrances in the world had congealed in this group. For a moment, the little stoic's expression was grave, as if she was facing a great enemy. Eldest young Sir Chin naturally smelled it as well, and he hastily moved closer to the little stoic while exclaiming, "Wah, Jojo, are these fragrances poisonous? I feel dizzy. Have I been poisoned?" Arbor expressionlessly slapped his paw away and sprinkled some powder next to him with a flick of his finger, instantly dispersing most of the strange fragrances coming from the other side. Eldest young Sir Chin wasn't pretending this time. When these fragrances were mixed together, it truly was a very strong poison. It wasn't good for people to smell these scents in this kind of environment for a long time. Meng Meiyou's expression changed drastically. Fifth young Sir Chin, who was standing next to ninth Chin, also had a similar change in expression. He recognized Meng Meiyou at a glance. This was precisely that disgusting woman he encountered in Feng Mulan when his arms and legs were crippled. The fifth young Sir actually didn't realize that he had actually moved and silently moved closer to Jojo. Omega Kotoku, on the other hand, seemed to have noticed it and glanced at him. At this moment, Arbor scattered some medicinal powder to disperse the messy smell. Then he looked at Meng Meiyou's team with disgust. Meng Meiyou's group consisted of about 30 women, each of them had a graceful and enchanting figure, and their attire was very revealing. In broad daylight, with her arms and legs exposed, a strong seductive wind blew in his face. Before Meng Meiyu could say anything, a woman beside her with dark green eyeliner and an extremely enchanting appearance looked towards Prince Mo and the group of people from the Qin estate with bright eyes. Wow, so many handsome men. Mo Lien and eldest Qin moved almost at the same time and stood behind Sir Jojo. It was the same recipe and the same taste. Eldest young Sir Chin couldn't help but turn to glance at Prince Mo and inexplicably recall that period of time on Seikong planet. He didn't know when he had developed this habit, but whenever he encountered a woman he didn't want to deal with, he would habitually hide behind Sir Jojo, and every time, Sir Jojo would never disappoint them. Eldest young Sir Chin couldn't resist raising his hand to cover his face. He saw the little stoic take a step forward and stretch out 2 fingers again. In this strange momentary silence, she made a gesture of communicating with her eyes. Chapter 41:10. What are you looking at? Arbor's expression chilled, and he suddenly flew into a rage. Who are you people? The little stoic had clearly forgotten about Meng Meiyu. Vice Cult Master Meng's legs were trembling uncontrollably. In the end, the stoic face actually didn't remember her. The main reason was that this stoic face truly intimidated her too much. Recalling that time in Phoenix Woods, she couldn't help but curse a string of fuck when she recalled that pot of all-nourishment soup afterward. Not only did she lose her arms and legs, but she also found an ugly and old man in the woods to dispel the effects of the all-nourishment soup and fought him several hundred rounds. Whenever she recalled it afterward, she would vomit incessantly. But she couldn't choose at that time, nor did she have the time to choose. If she didn't quickly dispel the effects of the medicine, she would die an undignified death. That little stoic girl's methods were truly sinister enough. Before she left, she even tossed her a pot of improved all-nourishment soup. She truly caused her to suffer. When enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Meng Meiyu really wanted to rush up and tear that girl apart, but she actually cowered. She understood very well that this current body actually had a strange fear reaction the instant she saw this girl. She was very scared now. The little girl was young, but she felt that her methods were very cruel and terrifying. Move aside, don't block the way, Arbor said irritably. Sensing those women's gazes all drifting towards her, the little stoic was very displeased. What are you looking at me for? Everyone, Meng Meiyu was momentarily speechless. In the end, it was the green-eyed girl next to Meng Meiyu who giggled and said, "Oh, so you're from the Royal Academy. We're from the City of Shadows, Devil Star Academy. Aren't you from the demonic cult?" Yun Piaomiao speechlessly interrupted that girl. What Devil Star Academy? It was simply the demonic cult, all right? Vice Cult Master Meng, your demonic cult also came to participate in the Heavenly Yuan ranking competition this time? Yun Piaomiao asked with a frown. Could it be that the other academies would all agree? Headmaster Yun's words are incorrect. These are indeed the children of the Devil Star Academy. Meng Meiyou's face was cold as she pointed to a group of similarly revealing girls. The gazes of these girls all fell on Prince Mo, Mu Xingchen, Duan Muqing, and the young masters of the Qin estate. Their beautiful eyes were full of tender feelings. They didn't hide the ambition and desire in their eyes at all. Seeing this, Yun Piaomiao was a little amused. When was the Devil Star Academy established? It must have been established for the sake of the Heavenly Yuan ranking competition. Fine, there was nothing much to say. Dean Yun led the group of people from his academy forward. The Saint Beautiful battle stage was right in front of them. In addition to the Devil Star Academy and the Royal Academy, there were also several other teams from different academies. Due to the large number of people, the gates of the Saint Auspicious Battle Arena were already wide open. However, the group of girls from the Devil Star Academy insisted on squeezing together with the students from the Royal Academy, and for a moment, it was extremely congested. She watched as that green-eyed lady pounced into eldest young Sir Qin's arms. The little stoic practically acted out of conditioned reflex and directly sent her flying with a bam. For a moment, the numerous students from the various academies who were entering stopped in their tracks at the same time. They looked at Sir Jojo strangely, as if they were looking at a female guardian deity with monstrous strength. Chapter 41:11. Sir Jojo's little face was also a bit stupefied. His eyes turned, and he expressionlessly looked at the crowd around him. Everyone's expressions were rather strange. Big brother Mu Xingchen even coughed to cover his laughter. Sir Jojo lowered his head and glanced at the leg he had just lifted, then turned to look at the green eyeliner woman who had flown out and crashed onto the ground, sprawling on her back. It was inexplicably strange. He didn't know when this Sir Jojo had this kind of conditioned reflex. Once a pitiful little asked him for help, his instinctive reaction was to kick the stoic face turned away and pretended she hadn't done anything. She held her husband's hand and walked into the arena. Cough, cough, cough. Yun Piaomiao was speechless as he coughed dryly. He hurriedly called out to the 3,000 students behind him. Okay, everyone line up and go in. Don't make a fuss. Everyone rolled their eyes at the dean. Who the hell was making a fuss? The person making a fuss already went in, and you didn't even say anything. You told these innocent people to stop making a fuss? Yun Piaomiao knew he was in the wrong. He rubbed his nose and chuckled dryly before changing the topic. That green eyeliner woman had fallen quite hard this time. However, everyone was a cultivator, so a fall wouldn't hurt her bones or tendons. When she got up from the ground in a flustered and exasperated manner, rushing to settle the score with Arbor's group had already gone to the arena. Meng Miu hastily grabbed her arm and said with a sullen face, "Don't go over." "Sister, what do you mean?" Meng Meiyu's expression became extremely unsightly. She had suffered such a big loss in front of so many people. How could she endure it? "Meiyu, I'm doing this for your own good." Meng Meiyu whispered in her ear and patted her arm. Let's go in first." Although Meng Meiyu's expression was still very unsightly, her eyes revealed traces of panic and uncertainty. "Sister, is what you said true? The woman who schemed against you in Phoenix Grove last time was that stoic face just now?" Meng Meiyu nodded solemnly. Meng Meiyu immediately couldn't help but want to curse. If that's the case, then we can't let her go? "Sister, let's find a way to get rid of her here. Don't act rashly." Meng Meiyu looked at her younger sister worriedly and shook her head. Before Sect Master left, he instructed us not to cause trouble everywhere. "Meiyu, you'd better rein in your spoiled and unbridled temper. We can't afford to offend everyone in this world." At least in Meng Meiyu's opinion, that little stoic was quite terrifying. "Sister, you're scared by that woman." Meng Meiyu sneered and couldn't help curling her lips. "Even if that woman is powerful, we can still ambush her when she's unprepared. Big sister, look at you. It's not that I want to lecture you, but when you saw that stoic face just now, your legs started to tremble. Hearing Meng Meiyu's ridicule, Meng Meiyu's face instantly darkened. What nonsense are you talking about? Isn't that the case? Meng Meiyu harumphed. Sister, I'm also thinking of you other than that woman. Think about it, you've already been scared out of your mind by that stoic face. What good will it do for your future cultivation and growth? We can only let you rest easy in the future only by eliminating this mind demon of yours. Chapter 41:12. Xiao Qiao and her group had just walked into the arena when they were greeted by all kinds of noise and clamor. It was like a rolling heat wave that assaulted them. Xiao Mu really didn't like such a racket. Imperial Academy teachers and students, you've come late. Li Xiangbei, the glowing president of Jiawei Academy, walked up to greet them with a smile. Thousands of students followed behind him, all dressed in black high-waisted exercise robes with a name tag engraved with Jiawei Academy's emblem hanging from their waists. Yun Piaomiao put on a fake smile and walked up to greet Jiawei Academy's president, Li Xiangbei, as well as several instructors. Li Xiangbei's gaze naturally landed on Prince Mo, the little stoic, eldest young Sir Qin, and the others standing in the front row of the group. As expected, Imperial Academy students are very valiant and heroic. The little stoic expressionlessly swept him a glance. That little taut expression on her face, it made the Jiawei Academy teachers and students who saw her feel an inexplicable pain in their balls. Is this little student also here to participate in the competition? A female instructor with an alluring figure from Jiawei Academy looked Arbor up and down and asked with a smile. The little stoic honestly had directly attached 3 layers of aura-concealing talismans to her body. Her current cultivation level looked like she was just a little student at the 3rd level of the spirit realm. Yun Piaomiao looked meaningfully at the little stoic and nodded. This is our new student. That alluring instructor couldn't resist covering her mouth and laughing. She's also going to fight? Yun Piaomiao nodded gravely, pretending to be an extremely worried teacher. That's right. She also passed the preliminaries, so according to convention, she can also sign up to participate in the finals. She signed up? That instructor cast an astonished look at Arbor. They naturally knew the rules of the Imperial Academy's Heavenly Origin competition preliminaries. Every team had a normal person and a pill master. Although the Imperial Academy seemed to have 3,000 students, in reality, there wouldn't be more than 2,000 contestants who would actually fight. This was because some low-level students were lucky enough to pass the preliminaries with their teams and obtain the qualifications for the finals. But in reality, how could those pill masters and normal people possibly fight on stage? They usually came to spectate. However, the members who were able to obtain a spot in the finals, regardless of whether they played or not, would all receive a reward. At the end of the competition, there would naturally be a unified settlement of the resource rewards, which were said to be quite rich. Jojo-san looked at the enchanting teacher with an expressionless face. Suddenly, he saw a person standing behind her. The person had green hair, and the color of his hair was eye-catching. That green-haired kid looked to be about 18 or 19 years old. His head was really green. Is it that green-haired guy? The little stoic suddenly pointed behind the bewitching female mentor. Eldest young Master Qin and the others couldn't help twitching their mouths. The little fatty jumped up and nodded. That's him. This bastard actually dares to participate in the competition? The little stoic expressionlessly waved her hand. Many of the royal school students rushed forward as if there was nothing left to live for. Without saying a word, they punched the green-haired kid and knocked him to the ground. The scene instantly became chaotic. At the same time, other than the people from Jiawei Academy and Devil Star Academy, there were also students from other academies. The people from the royal school suddenly attacked without any warning. Chapter 41:13. With so many royal school students attacking at the same time, the unlucky green-haired boy was pushed to the ground and beaten senseless with just a few punches. Everyone at the scene was stunned. Damn, the students from the royal school were indeed very fierce. How could they start fighting with the Great Way Academy students after just a few sentences? No, It should be a one-sided beating, all right? The other students from the Great Way Academy were not to be trifled with. They had only been stunned for a moment, but now that they had regained their senses, they naturally would not let the royal school off so easily. Seeing that the battle was about to break out, Principal Li and Principal Yun of the royal school stretched out their hands at the same time and drew out two god shields, blocking the students from both sides outside the shields. "Stop!" A deep and resounding voice rang out from the St. Joe battle arena. Everyone turned to look and saw a young man in a red robe striding towards them. Behind him, there were 2 rows of arena guards holding sharp knives and similarly wearing red cloaks. The group of people quickly spread out and pulled the green-haired boy up, separating the 2 sides of the quarreling people. "So it's Captain Ao Lan." Principal Li and Principal Yun turned their heads at the same time and looked at the young man in the red robe, nodding at him indifferently. The young man also very politely clasped his fists towards the 2 principals. "Fighting is prohibited in the battle arena." "What fighting? It's our classmate who's being beaten up," a female student from the Great Way Academy shrieked. Was this person blind? Who was fighting each other? From the beginning to the end, it was the royal school students who attacked first. This group of mad dogs suddenly pounced on them and bit them. They did not even have time to retaliate before they were stopped by the 2 principals. Ao Lan looked at the female student, then turned to look in the direction of the royal school students. "No matter what personal grudges you have between you," a splashing sound suddenly swept across the sky, followed by a crack sound. A swift and fierce vine whip slid across the air in front of everyone's eyes. Before Ao Lan could react, it landed heavily on the green-haired boy's arm, eliciting a pitiful cry from the other party. The green-haired boy, who was originally being supported by someone, was now sent flying by a whip. Everyone watched as he fell miserably, his face heavily hitting the ground. They couldn't help but gasp. "Damn, seeing him fall like that from so far away, I feel pain for him." Olin abruptly turned to look at Arbor. Dean Li Xiangbei of Joe Academy, the enchanting female instructor, and the students all looked at Arbor as if they had seen a ghost. "Why did you attack?" "A gift in return." "Return gift?" Ao Lan looked as if he had seen a ghost. He stared at the calm little girl in front of him. "Return what gift? It's impolite not to reciprocate." Arbor looked at them coldly and calmly. Principal Li of the Joe Academy felt his eyelids twitch. Suddenly, he felt that the little stoic's gaze in front of him was sinister and ghostly, as if her entire body was emitting a chill. It inexplicably made a gust of wind start to leak from the bottom of his heart, making him feel very chilly. At this time, the green-haired boy had already been helped up. He pointed at the little fatty behind Arbor and gnashed his teeth in anger. "It's you guys." The little fatty straightened his rotund body and waved his arm at him. "When you broke my arm in the morning, you probably didn't expect that retribution would come so quickly." Chapter 41:14. The green-haired boy trembled in anger. He pointed at little fatty and shouted angrily, You. By now, Li Xiangbei could also tell that the Royal Academy didn't look for trouble with anyone but directly targeted this boy. They probably had some personal grudge. He then looked at Yun Piaomiao with knitted brows and said good-naturedly with a smile, "Headmaster, look at how troublesome this matter is. Since we're about to enter the competition, how about we put aside the other grudges for the time being? If there's anything that needs to be resolved, how about we settle it in this competition?" After saying that, his gaze swept to the little stoic. The little stoic merely wanted to teach the green-haired boy a lesson. Now that she had taught him a lesson, she naturally couldn't be bothered to find fault with him. The green-haired boy broke little fatty's hand, so she hit him back. Wasn't this very fair? The little girl felt that this matter was already settled, so she couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Headmaster Li, who was looking at her. Yun Piaomiao twitched his mouth when he saw this. He had interacted with the little girl many times, so he could be considered to know a lot about the little girl's bizarre way of thinking. When he saw that the little girl wasn't speaking and the atmosphere was oppressive and awkward, he involuntarily coughed and stepped forward to smooth things over. Headmaster Li is right. If your school's teachers and students aren't convinced, you can naturally find our student Xiao to spar later. Since it's an unrestricted competition, cough cough. Headmaster Yun secretly dug a big hole for the little girl. Then it's not impossible for your school students to freely challenge the little girl. It's fine as long as it's done according to the competition rules. Before an unrestricted challenge, you need to submit an application 10 matches in advance, and the other party must also agree. Otherwise, you'd have to rely on drawing lots to determine your ranking. Drawing lots to qualify for the unrestricted competition, and the guardian competition. The points for these three types of competitions were naturally different. Every student participating in the competition had a copy of the competition regulations and points system. When the time came, they just needed to follow these regulations and rules. After Yun Piaomiao finished speaking, he discovered that the surroundings were silent. Mo Lien, Mu Xingchen, eldest Qin, Omega Katok, fifth Qin Yasi, and the others all turned to look at Headmaster Yun. A certain headmaster who was originally speaking confidently and with assurance inexplicably felt his hair stand on end under these sirs' gazes. The stoic man was expressionless as he flipped through the bylaws in his hands. He discovered that the bylaws did indeed contain the rules of the free challenge competition. Then I want to challenge you. The female student from Jiaowei Academy who had spoken earlier, filled with righteous indignation, roared at Arbor. He looked like he was about to eat someone. Xiao Mu immediately nodded without any hesitation. Damn it, she didn't even have half a second to think about it. Except, the little stoic called out crisply. The teachers and students of the royal school twitched their mouths. Mo Lien, Mu Xingchen almost choked on his own saliva. Looking at the female student from Jiaowei Academy, he couldn't help but mourn for her in his heart. Just how brainless was this elder sister to propose a free challenge to the little stoic? The little stoic stepped forward. The students of Jiaowei Academy immediately looked at her as if they were facing a great enemy. Although this girl's cultivation seemed to be very low, the fact that she had broken Greenhair's arm with a single whip was still lingering in their minds. They felt that this person in front of them didn't seem like a soft persimmon that could be casually kneaded. The little stoic walked up to the girl and patted her shoulder with a gratified expression. You have good taste. Chapter 41:15. You simply have great foresight. You picked Sir Jojo as your opponent right off the bat. Miss, you're really not bad. You have foresight and fighting spirit. Your future is bound to be limitless. Not to mention Mo Lien. Even those who were slightly more familiar with Sir Jojo all read this from the little girl's gratified expression. After eldest young Sir Qin sputtered with laughter, he hastily opened his fan and covered his face. Shengjia Battle Arena's captain glanced at the little girl speechlessly and couldn't help but remind her, the competition hasn't started yet, so you can't privately make a challenge. Arbor abruptly turned to look at Captain Ao Lon and threw him a cold, displeased glance. Tap 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 tap. The little girl abandoned the crowd and walked away in a huff with her hands clasped behind her back. She was simply crazy. Why didn't you say earlier that you couldn't make a challenge before the competition? She was so happy for half a day just now that she thought she could start fighting as soon as the competition started. She really thought too much. Mu Xingchen stifled his laughter. Mo Lien turned to glance at him. Seeing his lowered head and trembling shoulders, she couldn't help but look up at the sky speechlessly. Restrain yourself. Mu Xingchen nodded, but how could he calm down inside? No, he couldn't laugh at his little sister. But his little sister's appearance just now was seriously too comical and adorable. This battle-hungry little fellow's spirited, "I'm about to fight," expression suddenly turned into rage out of humiliation. Beneath her stoic face was an all-encompassing variety of strange little expressions. Why didn't you say you couldn't make a challenge earlier? You made Sir Jojo waste his saliva. Following Ao Lan's lead, everyone arrived at the venue area and sat down in their respective academy areas. The 6 circular arenas were simultaneously illuminated by the suspended illuminating pearls and rotated clockwise along the stands at a uniform speed. Under the illuminating pearls' refraction, each arena emitted a bright and sharp light. A burst of noise came from the front. Everyone sat on the 4 sides of the stands, and the 6 arenas rotated clockwise. This way, everyone could clearly see the situation on each arena. Of course, if spirit energy crisscrossed during the battle, it was naturally impossible to clearly see the situation on each arena. At that time, they could only selectively watch one or two of the arenas. Therefore, the spectators spent a lot of spirit coins to buy seats in the front row of the arena. In this way, their field of vision was broadened, and they could clearly feel the intensity of each battle. The hosts of the competition were a pair of fairy-like white-clothed man and woman. In an instant, many peach blossom petals fell from the sky, drifting in the air. The man and woman held hands as they landed on one of the brightly lit arenas. They chuckled and said to the crowd in the stands, "Greetings, patriarchs and sect masters of the aristocratic families. Greetings, young masters and young mistresses, teachers and students of the academy. Today, we are honored to be the host of the famous Heaven Yuan ranking competition in the 3 provinces." The bright illuminating pearl lit up the entire area of the royal school. Let us welcome the teachers and students of the royal school with a warm round of applause. From afar, Xiao Mu looked expressionlessly at the host and host who were talking nonstop. Her small face was tense. As we all know, the Tianyuan ranking was originally a competition for the royal school to select the best talents. The 2 hosts blabbered on, but Arbor didn't listen carefully. Chapter 41:16. In the end, she heard the host call out vehemently, "Now, may the Royal Academy's representative please stand up and say a few words for us." Immediately after, a beam of bright, rippling light struck her directly. It had to be said that no matter if it was the layout or the decorations of this Xingjiu arena, they were all top-notch. When the lights hit the little stoic's body, the little stoic's aloof, gorgeous, and expressionless stoic face simultaneously appeared on the 6 large arenas. It was unknown who let out a pft, but the Royal Academy's teachers and students nearly went crazy with laughter. They all hastily lowered their heads and pretended not to see anything, but their shoulders suspiciously twitched and trembled. Mu Xingchen covered his face with one hand, feeling like his stomach was hurting from holding it in. What kind of freaking joke was this? Who could tell them? Was it Xingjiu Arena's long-standing practice to have the representative stand up and say a few words, or was it specially taking care of the little stoic? Where in the world did Xingjiu find these 2 amusing hosts? Arbor noticed that everyone's gazes were on her. Mo Lien was a bit pained from holding back her laughter, and she quietly said to her, "It's nothing, Jojo. Don't mind it. Speak a few words, speak a few words." Yun Piaomiao made an encouraging gesture with an affectionate face. "Student Xiao, don't panic. Your whole family is panicking." Arbor knitted her brows and expressionlessly stood up. She surveyed the surroundings, and her gaze landed on several students from Joe Academy in the front row. She asked crisply, "Who dares to challenge me on stage?" How could those young and impetuous students from Joe Academy concede defeat? Once they saw the little girl's infuriating attitude and condescending expression, they immediately couldn't sit still. The girl from before stood up with a stomp and roared with glaring eyes, "Me!" The little stoic looked at her, and her eyes instantly sparkled. She hastily praised, "You have such good taste." The Royal Academy students truly couldn't freaking hold back anymore, and they roared with laughter. The 2 hosts stood there awkwardly for a long time before they cleared their throats and said, "All right. This female student from Joe Academy challenges the Royal Academy's student representative. The challenge is a success. Now, will both representatives please give us a speech?" Qi Xuanxuan's shoulders trembled as she buried her head and giggled. Heavens, are these 2 hosts here to make fun of me? After talking for so long, they still wanted Jojo to speak. What could Jojo say? Thus, the female student from Joe Academy said in a clear voice, "I'm Joe Academy's 3rd-year Battle Hall student, Jiang Lushui. It's my honor to meet all of you. In the future, I, Jiang Lushui, will fight every match with an unyielding spirit." "All right." The 2 hosts cheered and applauded Jiang Lushui. Then, they turned to the student from Arbor with a smile. "Representative from the Royal School, please speak." Arbor's face was stern, but a cold glint flashed in his eyes. I am Arbor from the Royal Academy. I will use my strength to prove to all of you that the battle arena is a battle, and everything you say is just nonsense. If you fight me, you will either lose or die. Everyone was speechless. The two hosts were inexplicably at a loss for words. What was going on? Ha! A friend from the Royal Academy actually slapped his thigh and guffawed. Everyone's mouths twitched simultaneously, and they looked at the two hosts sympathetically. What could they say about you? Of all the things you could do, you just had to make the little stoic speak. Chapter 41:17. The Royal Academy's teachers and students had all experienced the thrill of having the little stoic give a speech on the first day of school. The two hosts stared blankly for a moment before snapping out of their daze as if they had just woken up from a dream. The Royal Academy's new student representative is very energetic. Please sit. Sit. Hurry and sit down. Don't you see that the group of foolish children around you have already been stunned by your words? Before Arbor sat down, he waved at student Jiang Lushui and shouted from a distance, "When is the battle?" Everyone. Student Jiang Lushui from Jiaowei Academy glanced at her in bewilderment and answered foolishly, "I'll accompany you anytime." A smile surfaced on the little stoic's expressionless face, and she raised a finger and shook it. "You have good taste." The surrounding Royal Academy students had long choked with laughter. My heavens, why did it feel like they didn't come to compete but to watch a show instead? Arbor sat down and swept his eyes over the surrounding people who were rocking back and forth with laughter. He knitted his brows and glanced at his husband. "Is it very funny?" Mo Lien hastily shook her head and said seriously, "How is it funny? My Chiao, it's just a normal duel with someone." Her husband was right. Since when could a proper battle appointment make people laugh like this? Xiao Mu solemnly nodded her head, and her small eyes disdainfully swept over the surrounding students. Each and every one of them was laughing like idiots. Even Sir Jojo didn't know why they were laughing. Devil Star Academy, Jiaowei Academy, Umbra Academy, Radiance Academy. Following the illumination of the Illumination Pearl's light, one academy formation after another flashed on the 6 arenas. Perhaps the two hosts were frightened by the Royal Academy's student representative's speech just now, but they didn't waste any more words afterward and asked which academy's representative should stand up and say a few words. For the next 7 days, Duo and I will broadcast the most exciting moments of each competition live. We will announce the rankings before the end of each day. This is what everyone is most concerned about. I believe our point calculation team will give everyone a satisfactory answer every day. I'm sorry. We're too late. Two voices rang out one after another. They saw a handsome man in white leading many disciples in the air. His voice sounded in the field. Sorry. Following behind him was a graceful woman in red clothes. Unwilling to be outdone, she led her group of disciples and flew to the front of the white-clothed man. She glanced at him fiercely and said in a clear voice, "The disciples of the Fire Academy are late. Please forgive us." Xiao Mu looked up, and her eyes involuntarily brightened. It's senior brothers Situ and the others. He didn't expect that the disciples of Fire Smelting City and Icebound City would come for the finals of the Heavenly Origin competition. Mo Lien raised her head and naturally saw Sidiyi's lifeless face. She couldn't help but laugh. Looks like there's a good show to watch. Looking at the Fire Smelting City's City Lord and Icebound City's City Lord's faces, it was obvious that the upcoming competition wouldn't be peaceful. Umbra Academy, Fire Smelting City and Icebound City, did they all come for the competition under the guise of an academy? Qi Xianxian asked curiously. Umbra City has been quite active recently. Chapter 41:18. Fatty nodded his head and said, "Yeah, I thought that since the 4 cities lived in seclusion, they wouldn't care about this little bit of resources." "What do you know?" Mata played with the thin lancet in his hand and said with a smile, "You can't imagine the resources that the top 10 of the Heavenly Origin competition can obtain." "He's that powerful?" Little Fatty asked. "Since the World Academy is invited, the 4 cities will naturally participate. Furthermore, they didn't mess around. There are indeed academies in the 4 cities. With such a large city, it's not surprising that there are academies to accept talents from all walks of life. While speaking, a few white-clothed students of both genders walked over with smiles on their faces. Every one of them looked radiant with smiles on their faces. "Greetings, Your Highness the Crown Prince." The leading youth smiled as he walked in front of Mo Lien and respectfully bowed. Mo Lien's gaze faintly swept over the badge on his chest as he asked with a nod, "Someone from Glory City?" The youth smiled and nodded. He pointed to the dozen or so youths behind him and said, "We're all disciples of Glory City's City Lord Bai. We're students of Glory Academy's Excellence class. Glory City's City Lord Bai Sheng is the father-in-law of the Divine Prefecture's Emperor and the Crown Prince's grandfather." This was something that almost everyone knew. Now that they saw the youths from Glory Academy greeting the Crown Prince, everyone felt that it wasn't strange at all. Mo Lien didn't have much enthusiasm. She just nodded her head and asked, "What's the matter?" The youths from Glory City were stunned. They probably didn't expect the Crown Prince's attitude to be so cold. Hearing her question, they awkwardly smiled and said, "Nothing much." Prince Mo nodded his head and turned his head to look at Arbor. He raised his hand and took out a cup of warm spiritual tea and handed it to his wife. Xiao Mu naturally accepted it as a matter of course and silently drank a mouthful. The gazes of the people from Glory Academy fell on Arbor at the same time. "Who's this?" A soft and gentle voice rang out from the crowd of Radiance Academy. The end of the voice carried a hint of unknown meaning. All the disciples of Radiance Academy parted to the sides, revealing a woman with a slightly raised chin and an overbearing aura radiating from her. Arbor held a cup of tea and calmly glanced at the newcomer. He frowned slightly. Was it her imagination? He felt that these Glory Academy disciples were here to watch a good show. He seemed to be very unfriendly to her. Why was that? Mo Lien's eyes chilled a few degrees. She lifted her arm to embrace the little stoic's waist and icily said, "If your eyes aren't well, treat them as soon as possible. If your brain isn't good, treatment is probably useless." Qi Xianxian nodded her head in agreement. She turned around and whispered to little Fatty, "Did you see that? It's good to learn. If someone doesn't treat me well in the future, wife, don't worry. I will definitely help you destroy them." Ma Luyu, Jiang Shaoxin, and the others all looked at the 2 idiots expressionlessly. What was going on? Why did it feel like the entire world had changed after they came out of seclusion for 2 days? What was going on with this inexplicable pink rain of bubbles floating around them all day long? Could single people protest? Could they make these 2 idiots pay attention and stop being lovey-dovey in front of them all day long? Chapter 41:19. The gorgeous woman's expression changed slightly, and she looked coldly at Mo Lien. "Senior brother Mo, I didn't expect you to change so much after not seeing you for more than a decade." Mo Lien raised his brows and looked at the woman in front of him non-committally. In his memory, he didn't have this person at all. She was someone who was thrown down to the lower realm by her father when she was 3 or 4 years old. Speaking of which, the time she could stay in Glory City was before she was 4 years old. How many memories could she have of that time? It was normal for her to not remember these people. However, their overbearing attitude made Mo Lien somewhat uncomfortable. Especially since this overbearing attitude wasn't directed at him, but at his Jojo. It made him feel even more disgusted. Hong Shang carefully sized up the little stoic girl in front of him. He had to admit that this girl indeed had a rarely seen icy beauty that was unparalleled. But what was the use of being beautiful? Senior brother Mo was truly too shallow and short-sighted. As the Crown Prince of the Divine Province, the future heir apparent of the Divine Province, and the next generation's leader of Glory City, no matter which identity it was enough to shake the entire 3 provinces. How could such an outstanding talent so carelessly marry a wife with such a low cultivation? In the eyes of Hong Shang and the numerous youths from Glory Academy, the little stoic's cultivation was simply so low that it made one's hair stand on end. 3rd level of the spirit realm, any random guard from a large aristocratic family wouldn't have a cultivation as low as the 3rd level of the spirit realm. So just how submissive was she? You're also a student of the Imperial Academy? Hong Shang's indifferent gaze landed on Arbor as he said in an icy tone, "Do you dare accept my challenge?" Arbor didn't have any reaction after hearing this. Everyone around her was instantly shaken. In the midst of an uproar, there were even Imperial Academy students who slapped their thighs and wildly cheered. Was there something wrong with these people from the Imperial Academy? Was there a need to be this excited just because she said one sentence? Hong Shang and the group of Glory Academy students behind him couldn't help but frown. The little stoic's eyes instantly lit up as she looked at her. She slowly stood up, still holding the teacup with both hands. "You want to challenge me?" "Yes, I want to challenge you." Hong Shang stared coldly at the little girl before her. "If you lose, you must leave senior brother Mo's side immediately and leave the Divine Prefecture." As soon as Hong Shang finished speaking, she was surprised to find that the group of Royal School students opposite her had all rolled their eyes at her. What was even stranger was that even the dean and a dozen or so instructors sitting in the front row couldn't help but look at her with disdain. Hong Shang was slightly angered. What? She was the eldest senior sister of Glory City, who had already broken through to the 2nd level of the Divine Realm and possessed the 8th level of the spiritual fire. How could she possibly lose to this little girl in front of her? The little stoic's chilly eyes narrowed dangerously. Those who knew her would immediately notice the slight change in her mood. This was a sign that he was about to get angry. Principal Yun stood up and chuckled as he said to Hong Shang, "This student from Radiance Academy, you have good eyesight. Great. Then let's arrange the battle like this. You may return to your positions now." "She hasn't agreed to my terms yet." Hong Shang snorted coldly. The little stoic's gaze abruptly chilled as she stared at her. "Try saying that again." Hong Shang inexplicably felt a chill in her heart, and she glanced at the little stoic in bewilderment. Chapter 41:20. Strange, why was this sudden chill in her heart so intense and direct? Hong Shang took a deep breath, her eyes indifferently swept a glance at Arbor. "How about it? You dare to accept my conditions?" Bang! Mo Lian's sudden attack caused Hong Shang to be shocked. She quickly placed her hands in front of her forehead and released a fire spirit barrier. The moment the fire spirit barrier came into contact with Prince Mo's power, it shattered. While Hong Shang was shocked, the few youths behind her hurriedly threw out a few defensive talismans and arranged them in front of Hong Shang. Only then was she barely able to withstand the attack. "Acting on your own initiative. My matters are none of your business." Mo Lian coldly glanced at her. "Immediately apologize to my wife or else." Arbor tilted his head and coldly swept a glance at them. Hong Shang was unwilling, but since senior brother Mo had already spoken, she could only take a step forward and cupped her hands towards Arbor. Hong Shang was disrespectful. "Please forgive her." "Senior sister Hong." The few youths from Glory City knitted their brows and called out in dissatisfaction. Mo Lian's eyes were incomparably cold as she stared at Hong Shang, causing her to uncomfortably lower her eyes. The little stoic's eyes revealed the meaning of "you're courting death." Just as she was about to open her mouth, she saw Hong Shang raise her hand and coldly say, "Then, I'll have to respectfully invite Miss to leave. Farewell." Hong Shang led her people and bowed towards Mo Lian. She simply didn't give the stoic a chance to speak, turned around, and left with the group of Glory Academy disciples. Before leaving, Arbor could feel the unfriendly gazes of these people from Glory City. She lowered her head and pondered for a moment. Her eyes flashed and she somewhat understood why these people didn't like her. As the proud sons of Glory City, these genius students didn't wish for their future mistress to be an ant with a low cultivation that could be crushed with a finger. These young men and women from the big families and corporations had such bad tempers and were very overbearing. "Jojo." Mo Lian looked at his wife worriedly. "Are you angry?" Arbor nodded solemnly. How could she not be angry? Someone was already knocking at her door, telling her to get away from Jojo's lotus if she knew what was good for her. It would be strange if she wasn't angry. The little stoic raised her head and glanced at Lotus. "You don't feel bad about crippling her, right?" Mo Lien shook her head decisively and quickly defended herself. I'm not familiar with them at all. If there was any friendship between them, it was probably a friendship from more than 10 years ago. Furthermore, the amount of time he stayed in Glory City with his mother wouldn't exceed 10 days. With his father's level of sticking to his wife, 10 days might not even be enough. How much friendship could he have with people like them? Even if they were friends, it was not as important as their own daughter-in-law. Xiao Mu nodded her head, her eyes ice-cold. What position did they have to show her an expression as if she wasn't worthy of Jojo's lotus? Some irrelevant people inexplicably jumped in front of her and pointed at her. They were all people who needed to be taught a lesson. Even if she was a good-for-nothing, the matter between her and Lotus didn't need them to interfere. Whether she was worthy or not, how she and Jojo's Lotus lived their lives, that was between the two of them. Chapter 41-21. Other people, how could they be so shameless as to look down on her? While Arbor was deep in thought, illusions of the contestants' names appeared in the air above the 6 stages. If no one was on the stage and no one registered for the free challenge competition in advance. At this time, the competition was carried out according to the drawing of lots. The drawing of lots was done by the teachers of each school backstage, and the matches were randomly matched. Everything depended on luck. For the free challenge competition, one had to apply 10 times in advance, and the other side had to agree in person. After the 12 contestants entered the stage, the 6 stages slowly rotated, and the atmosphere of the whole venue was ignited by the cheers of the audience. Arbor rested her chin on one hand, looking at the stage closest to her. On the stage, a girl from the Devil Star Academy was fighting with a student from the Shadow Academy. The two people's magnificent spiritual energy crisscrossed, flashing in front of everyone's eyes, and their movements were faster than ordinary people. Especially the Devil Star Academy disciple, who probably specialized in agile and graceful movements. In a few leaps and bounds, she made the male disciple from the Shadow Academy suffer a few losses. Suddenly, the male disciple from the Shadow Academy raised his hand and summoned a 12th-level spiritual beast. When the 12th-level spiritual beast appeared, its pressure intimidated the whole audience, and more or less affected the other 5 stages. The female disciple from the Devil Star Academy clenched her teeth, and also summoned a spiritual beast. It flew up to the Shadow Academy disciple, and after 100 moves, her body swayed and couldn't hold on. Arbor shook her head. She already knew that this girl would lose. After all, there was a difference in physical strength between men and women, and the level of the spiritual beast summoned by this girl was much lower than the opponent's. She was completely suppressed. The most important point was that although this girl's movements were light and graceful, she couldn't hold on for such a long time, and kept going back and forth on the stage. Eventually, she would be exhausted, and her spiritual energy couldn't be consumed for a long time. When her spiritual energy was exhausted, she would lose miserably looking at how that female disciple from Devil Star Academy was kicked off the stage without the slightest hesitation and was unable to make a sound for a long time. Xiao Mu knew that the strength of this kick had broken 3 of that girl's ribs. This person from the Shadow Academy was quite ruthless. Speaking of which, Xiao Mu really did recognize this man standing on the stage right now. Previously, he had met a man in the Phoenix Wood Forest. His name seemed to be Zhao Yi. Previously, he had been following Mu Xiaoxue, the 4th Miss of the City of Shadows. Since this fellow was here, then Miss Mu was most likely here as well. When Xiao Mu's gaze shifted, she saw a dense mass of heads as far as the eye could see. If she really wanted to find something in this crowd, then she could only expend her divine conscience to activate her divine eye. Arbor didn't think it was necessary, so he turned his attention back to the field. This time, after the 6 matches, Arbor heard the host's clear and melodious voice ring out like the sounds of nature. Ladies and gentlemen, the first round of the free-for-all competition begins now. Student Arbor from the Royal Academy and student Jiang Luxue from the Jiaowei Academy, please come to the stage. I'm going. The little guy excitedly shook Missouri Lien's hand. The latter didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Just as Jiang Luxue rose into the air and flew towards the ring, A slender figure suddenly flashed past. Chapter 41:22. Everyone only felt their vision blur, and when they looked at the stage again, they abruptly discovered that the little stoic was already standing on the stage. At this very moment, Jiang Lushui leaped to the edge of the stage and looked at Arbor in slight horror after landing. What was going on? Why was she so much faster than him? How did she appear on the stage so quickly? Jiang Lushui looked Xiao Mu up and down in bewilderment. She used something like a teleportation talisman, right? The astonished crowd below couldn't help but shout. Could talismans be used in the competition? Of course they could. The degree of freedom in this Heavenly Yuan ranking tournament was very high. Even if you wanted to use poison, concealed weapons, or all sorts of random self-made items, it was all allowed. This point was clearly stated in the rules of the competition. Therefore, even if there were people shouting loudly, there was no need to say anything else. However, they probably didn't expect that someone would immediately use a teleportation talisman to posture the moment they appeared. Wouldn't this raise the opponent's vigilance? The competition hadn't even started yet, but was it really wise to raise the opponent's vigilance? How could these people know that the little stoic didn't activate a talisman at all? Before the start of the competition, the little fellow had already extracted the space-time power that could be used continuously for about 4 hours from the small silver ball and temporarily stored it in her body. Therefore, she didn't need to activate any talismans at all. Probably only some young talents with especially sharp eyesight would raise a trace of doubt in the depths of their hearts. Why didn't he sense the flow of talisman power in the air? Jiang Lushui instantly summoned his 3-foot-long sword from his conscious on high alert and held it tightly in his hand. A faint trace of doubt surfaced in his eyes. Why did this level 3 spiritual master in front of him give him so much pressure? Wasn't this strange? The other party was only a little level 3 spiritual master. And she was already a level 10 spiritual master. Logically speaking, she absolutely shouldn't be pressured by this stoic's aura. Taking a deep breath, Jiang Lushui calmed himself down and cupped his fists. Jiaowei Academy, Jiang Lushui, thanks for... Before he could finish speaking, Jiang Lushui felt his heart thump heavily. She saw that her opponent, who was 30 feet away from her, had suddenly appeared in front of her in a single step. He spread out his 5 fingers and fiercely pressed down on her face. Jiang Lushui only felt a huge and majestic force continuously passing through his opponent's arm. She lost her balance and fell on her back. Jiang Liushui's eyes flashed with a trace of panic and hesitation. He was dumbfounded. The sounds of gasps and screams around her were all blocked out of her mind. It was as if all the air around him had been sucked out in an instant. He could only hear the rumbling in his head. Other than that, there was no other sound. The back of Jiang Liushui's head was about to hit the ground. Xiao Mu's eyes were sharp and her hands were nimble, and she grabbed her collar with a backhand, yanking her in front of her. Jiang Lushui stared blankly at the person in front of him. He opened his mouth, but before he could make a sound, his body had already been thrown out of the arena. Jiang Liushui's but landed on the ground outside the arena. The fall didn't hurt, but his entire body was still in a daze. He didn't know what had happened. Until the tide-like roars came from all directions. Adjust the time tomorrow. Chapter 41:23. Only then did Jiang Lushui come back to his senses. She had lost. She had completely lost, hadn't she? The girl's eyes suddenly widened to the size of copper bells, and she stared fixedly at Arbor with an incredulous expression. Heavens, she was a level 10 Great Spirit Master, but she couldn't even summon her Spirit Beast in one exchange. She was already defeated by a little Spirit Master who looked like she was only a level 3 Spirit Master. She was thrown out of the arena in one blow. Jiang Lushui couldn't help but shudder. It wasn't her misconception. When that stoic-faced person's hand pressed on her face with an ice-cold gaze, she could feel the aura of death approaching. This stoic-faced person's aura was so powerful that she suddenly felt like she was no match for him. But why was it like this? Jiang Lushui took a deep breath and was helped up by a few schoolmates from the same academy. His eyes still didn't blink as he stared fixedly at Arbor. At this moment, the female host, Duo, finally recovered from her shock and kicked the male host beside her who was also in a daze. The female host Duo said with a smile, "Congratulations to this student from the Royal Academy for winning the first free challenge match. You will receive 100 points. Congratulations to this student from the Royal Academy." The entire arena was in an uproar. Many puzzled cries drowned out the cheers of Qi Xianxian and the others. Arbor raised her brows and her gaze swept across the crowd below the arena. Her gaze faintly landed on the astonished Hong Shang. This girl was currently looking at her with a suspicious gaze, as if she was very doubtful about how she could sweep Jiang Lushui off the stage with one blow. A young man sitting beside Hong Shang frowned slightly and said to her in a low voice, "Senior Sister Hong, can you tell what happened just now?" Hong Shang thought for a moment with a cold expression and shook her head. Her movements were very fast just now. Even she almost didn't see clearly when she moved and how she threw Jiang Lushui off the stage. It was truly inconceivable. "Senior Sister Hong, you have to be careful. Perhaps this Miss Qiao isn't as weak as we think?" Hong Shang couldn't help but sneer. "Junior brother Jia, you're being too cautious. It's just because I have some talismans in my possession. I've heard that the future mistress of Glory City is a symbol master." Cha Pinchao slowly reminded him. A faint cold light flashed in the depths of Hong Shang's eyes as he sneered, "Oh, let me experience the power of a talisman master. I've heard that a powerful symbol master can turn a city wall into ashes with a flick of his finger after reaching a certain level." Hong Shang suddenly chuckled. "I wonder what level her symbol force has reached." Cha Pinchao smiled and lowered his head to hide the slight ridicule in his eyes. Senior apprentice Sister Hong had indeed been cultivating in the sect for too long and was cut off from the outside world. In fact, there were many people who shared the same thoughts as Senior Hong. What a joke! Shouldn't these people first understand their opponents before making an appointment for a battle? Even with Jiang Liushui's example, she still couldn't raise her vigilance. Sure enough, she's been living like a prince in Glory City for the past few years. Her days had been too good. Cha Pinchao hid the ridicule on his lips and faintly lowered his eyes. Chapter 41-24. Hong Shang faintly swept a glance at Cha Pinchao. "What, do you have other opinions?" "I don't have any opinions," Cha Pinchao said with a smile in his voice. Hong Shang couldn't help but crease her brows. This junior brother Cha's strength was below hers, but his brain was indeed much smarter than hers. Junior brother Cha also expressed his disapproval when she brought people to cause trouble for that stoic face. Could it be that he really felt that stoic face had something outstanding about it? Hong Shang lifted her eyes again and looked towards the little stoic's direction. Next match, Fire Refining City's Wei Nanfeng versus Underworld Province's Tianhua Academy, Biaoliang. Arbor had just walked down and sat down when he heard the male host, Nyonyo, announce the names of the two competitors. The little fellow promptly tugged on Prince Mo's sleeve. "Your family's Wei Nanfeng is going up." The crown prince couldn't help but be speechless. He lightly stroked her small head. "What family's Wei Nanfeng? You're my family's. As for Wei Nanfeng?" Looking at this contemptuous expression, if Wei Nanfeng was here and heard his own brother talking about him like this, he would definitely cry. As he spoke, Wei Nanfeng and that Tianhua Academy's Biao Liang simultaneously flew onto the stage and cupped their fists in salute. At the same time, they summoned their weapons from their conscious. The author is here, cough, 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 cough. Outside the gauze screen, below the steps of the main hall, eunuchs and royal maids were all kneeling there in fear and trepidation. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Ever since Her Majesty the Empress arrived, the atmosphere here was so cold and strange that it made people feel extremely fearful. Everyone only dared to lie down and play dead, motionlessly pretending that their 5 senses and 6 senses were completely blocked. How could they still dare to listen to the quarrel coming from behind the gauze screen? Impossible. Her Majesty can't have passed away like this. Tell me, is it him? Is it Prince Chen's doing? Is it? Empress Lu's face was waxy yellow, and her eyes were completely sunken due to lack of sleep. Now, She was so thin that her cheekbones protruded high, and her eyes were like a demon from hell. She gloomily stared unwaveringly at the row of imperial physicians kneeling in front of her as she let out a high-pitched and impassioned shriek. The row of imperial physicians had already fainted from fright. The Empress accused the Crown Prince of murdering the great Emperor? Who the fuck would dare to respond to such words? Cough cough cough. The chief physician of the Imperial Hospital braced himself and raised his head. He shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, the Empress worries too much. His Majesty's injuries were too severe in his early years, and all these years he has only been holding on with medicine. His Majesty is very clear about his own body, including the maids who serve him." "Shut up." Empress Lu pointed at the chief physician of the Imperial Institute of Medicine with her sharp fingernails and shouted, "Wang Hua, how dare you give false testimony for Prince Chen? It was him, he must have poisoned His Majesty. Investigate. Investigate for this consort. I want to get to the bottom of this. The Empress has been worrying too much these days, and her mind is not clear. Send her back to Rinchuan Palace first." Duan Yu's chilly voice abruptly rang out, so icy that it made people's hearts involuntarily shudder. On the side, head eunuch Lai Fu, who had been keeping his head down the entire time, quickly responded with a yes when he heard Duan Yu's command. "What are you doing? What are you doing? You bunch of wretched slaves. How dare you grab this consort? Let go of this consort. Let go." Empress Lu shrieked. Duan Yu's eyes coldly swept over her. Chapter 41-25. She didn't say anything, but the royal guards walked up to grab Empress Lu and shoved her out the door. "Impudent! Impudent!" Empress Lu shrieked as she struggled to break free from their restraints. "Rongli, you're a wolf with wild ambitions. You killed His Majesty." Duan Yu pressed his aching head and turned to look at Wu Yong. "Prime Minister." Left Prime Minister Wu Yong nodded. He stood up, lifted the muslin curtain, and walked outside the screen. He cupped his hands at the Empress and said, "My condolences, Your Majesty. His Majesty did pass away because of the aggravation of his injuries. His Majesty has sought medical treatment for his injuries for so many years. Who in court doesn't know about it? Just a while ago, His Majesty passed away very quietly after calmly delegating some matters to us subjects. His Majesty passed away very peacefully and quietly. Your Majesty, please don't continue making a fuss here. You bunch of sycophantic officials and traitors were all bribed by Prince Chen. You all want to deal with Miley? Sycophantic officials? Sycophantic officials." No matter how extraordinary Prime Minister Wu Yong's bearing was, his nose was about to become crooked from anger when the Empress pointed at him and called him sycophantic officials and traitors. "Your Majesty, please be careful with your words," Wu Yong said gravely. A person directly walked out of the inner room and coldly looked at the unreasonable Empress. He said solemnly, in the Empress's eyes, "Could it be that this prince, Prince of the First Rank, Prince of Qin, Prince of Lu, the left and right prime ministers, and the 6 ministers are all sycophantic officials?" Empress Lu couldn't help but be taken aback when she saw the handsome middle-aged man with a cold and stern expression. Prince Rue? Empress Lu was flabbergasted. She then looked at the various princes and ministers who filed out of the inner room and felt a bit unwell. "Prince of the First Rank? Prince of Qing, Prince of Lu. Why are you all?" The Crown Prince of King Qing glanced at the Empress and said in a deep voice, "His Majesty has already drafted the Edict of Succession. He summoned all of us here and handed the edict to His Highness the Crown Prince in front of all of us. Your Majesty, you truly were too rude just now. His Majesty crowned Prince Chen as the Crown Prince 3 days ago. But just now, the Empress kept talking about Prince Chen. From her mouth to her heart, she was completely convinced that the person in front of her was the Crown Prince. Hey. The old Prince of Qing had always been a peacemaker. At this moment, seeing that her son didn't give the Empress any face and directly went against the Empress, she hurriedly tugged at his clothes and mediated, "Your Majesty, please don't take offense. My son is just straightforward and speaks his mind." Her Majesty must have been overly grieved by His Majesty's sudden death. That's why she spoke without thinking. Everyone, please don't take offense. Did His Majesty call all of you here? The Empress trembled all over and her face turned pale. The great Emperor knew that his life was coming to an end. Before he passed away, he didn't even plan to look at her. Just how much did he despise her? Empress Lu immediately collapsed to the ground, unable to muster up any strength. She knew. She had always known that there was no place for her in His Majesty's heart. He liked someone else. Although His Majesty had never said it to them, as a woman's intuition, she knew it for sure. Your Majesty, please restrain your grief. Prime Minister Wu sighed. Chapter 41-26. To tell the truth, Prime Minister Wu suddenly couldn't find any words of reproach when he saw the Empress like this. He could actually understand the Empress's worries about personal gains and losses now. His Majesty didn't even want to see her one last time before his death. Presumably, he truly didn't have any feelings for her after all these years. It was said that people would develop feelings for each other after interacting for a long time. But His Majesty was so indifferent that it made people's hearts heavy. Duan Yu coldly gazed at Empress Lu, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground, with a faint sneer on his lips. Who was she pretending for? Those who didn't know would think that she had deep feelings for the Emperor. Everything was merely for the sake of benefits. Seeing her silently sobbing with tears streaming down her face, they would think that she was very broken-hearted. If the Crown Prince hadn't been dethroned and her son, Rongli, ascended to the throne now, perhaps she would already be bursting with joy. Unfortunately, the Lu family was finished. Rongli was also finished. We're also about to be finished. Duan Yu's eyes revealed a cold and sharp glint, and he faintly lowered his gaze. Although Prince Rui and Prince Li of the first rank were about 10 years younger than the Emperor, they were the Emperor's biological uncles. Moreover, the Emperor treated these two little royal uncles extremely well all these years. The two royal uncles were also very supportive to the Emperor. Calling them together with the Prince of Qing and the Prince of Lu to make arrangements after their deaths was actually to pave the way for Duan Yu's ascension to the throne. As the Empress's senior, Prince Rui naturally couldn't harshly criticize her after seeing her like this. He merely sighed and said, "Empress, I believe you are also aware. Due to an old injury from many years ago, His Majesty's body is getting thinner by the day. It's precisely because His Majesty felt that his days were numbered that he hurriedly brought His Highness the Fourth Prince back to Tsang Province." Empress Lu gritted her teeth in hatred. How could she not know these things? Hence, when noble consort Duan returned to the palace, she became a thorn in her side. Because she knew from the start that the Emperor intended to nurture this fourth prince. When His Highness the Fourth Prince returned to the palace, she quickly discovered to her horror that this fourth prince was above her son, Crown Prince Rongli, in every aspect, whether it was talent, cultivation, or ability to manage affairs. Of course she hated the mother and son to death. Not only did she want noble consort Duan dead, but she also wanted Duan Yu, this little bastard, dead. Damn bastard, damn Rong Yuan. The Empress truly didn't expect that the Emperor would actually plant his seed on the distant Sikong planet. And this seed, without her knowledge, had actually grown to this stage in one fell swoop. How hateful! Empress Lu took a deep breath and angrily grasped the handkerchief in her hand. His Majesty's cultivation has completely dissipated over the years, and he's no different from an ordinary person without any cultivation. Prince Rui shook his head and sighed. However, His Majesty left very calmly this time. This prince saw that his face was filled with relief and there was no sign of pain. Presumably, his heart has found a place to return to. Empress Lu bit her lips bitterly. Have a place to belong to? His heart had a place to return to. Oh, what a sarcastic word. Shouldn't her husband's heart belong to her? At this time, Empress Lu had completely forgotten that she didn't give all her true feelings and sincerity to Rong Yuan. Usually, she would think more about how to let her son inherit the throne and how to let her Lu family take a step forward in the Zhangzhou continent. Chapter 41-27. Next, we still have to prepare His Majesty's funeral. Court matters are also piled up like a mountain. The Crown Prince's ascension is imminent, so there are many matters to attend to. The Empress should return to Benevolence Palace as soon as possible to properly recuperate, Prince Li of the first rank said aloofly. Prince Ray also nodded. Prince Li of the first rank is extremely correct. If the Empress has no other matters, please return to the palace first. The implication was, don't stay here and cause trouble for others. They were already busy enough. Since her two uncles had already spoken, there was nothing the Empress could do other than secretly resent them. However, she was truly unresigned, and her venomous eyes were still glaring at Duan Yu before she left. Ever since their Lu family was annihilated, everything developed in a terrifying direction. Hurley was led astray by a bunch of coquettish bitches. This matter was truly too fishy. She was very clear about her own son. His character was pure and virtuous, and he was also very chaste. In addition, Li Er's health wasn't too good, and he also greatly cherished his life, so he normally wouldn't mess around with women. Moreover, it was a man. When the Empress recalled the scene she saw that day when she vomited blood, her entire face couldn't help but contort. Prince Rui frowned as he watched the pale-faced Empress being supported out. He grumbled in displeasure, with such a temperament, it's no wonder you raised a son like that. Oh no. A young eunuch scrambled inside with a ghastly pale face and nearly bumped into Prince Rui's leg. Your Highness the Crown Prince, all the princes, something has happened. What happened? Prince Qing's eyelid twitched, and he quickly strode over to that young eunuch with his chubby legs, lifting him up at once. Hurry and speak, what happened? That eunuch's lips quivered in fright as he hastily said, the dethroned crown prince drowned in the pond in the imperial garden. What? Prince Rui growled, flabbergasted. Prince Li of the first rank glared at that eunuch and demanded, what are you still standing there for? Lead the way. The young eunuch was so frightened that his entire body was trembling. His entire body quivered when he heard Prince Li of the first rank's words. After Prince Qing threw him to the ground, he stumbled to his feet and crawled towards the door. A faint sneer appeared on Duan Yu's lips. When everyone followed the eunuch to the side of the pond in the imperial garden, they saw Empress Lu sitting on the ground with her hair disheveled. She was hugging a young man dressed in brocade, whose face was deathly pale. She was bawling without a care for her image. The many guards, maids, and eunuchs around her were all helpless. They couldn't reach out and take the person from the Empress' arms. Prince Ray and the others hurried forward and glanced at Rong Li's stiff and pale face. Seeing that his face was stiff, they knew that there was no hope for him. He probably slipped into the pool last night. You bunch of dog slaves. How was he on duty? Why did you only find out now that such a big thing had happened to the dethroned crown prince? Head eunuch Lai Fu's face was dark as he pointed at the trembling eunuchs and palace maids kneeling in a row and scolded them angrily. The eunuch close to the dethroned crown prince, Rong Li, crawled forward a few steps and cried out with a sobbing tone, Your Highness the Crown Prince, the princes, please allow me to report. The dethroned crown prince drank himself to death last night and insisted on going out for a walk. The servants wanted to follow him, but they were all chased back after being reprimanded by the dethroned crown prince. Absurd! Empress Lu shrieked. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.